Day yesterday. I hope you are still dynamic. Today we'll have more energy. Will be more the core group that we are working every year, and this is actually a working meeting. It's part of the conference, but as it is used, this is more or less a more family meeting, the second day. So we'll not have any specific protocol. We can discuss whatever it is required, and we'll try to be as open, try to do what we are dealing with, try to see what are the opportunities for the next years, and we'll try to make this day also very useful for everybody. So before we start, let me just tell you that maybe you'll see in the program that there is someone from the Commission, Thomas Matraia. Unfortunately, the crisis has hit also the Commission, so the last moment his traveling was cancelled because of financial cuts. So we'll not have someone from the Commission today. So it will be really a family thing. Let me give you, I don't know if I should go there. It's better. So this is what is the agenda for today. So we're starting with a brief presentation of In Contact 2020, because it has just started actually. It's a few months that is running the project, so it's good for you to have an idea of what is the planning, what are the activities, and how we can maybe collaborate with you for the next 1 year and a half. Then we'll continue with the PP way, and we will see what it's about. It's again misspelled here, eh? Yeah, I mean, it's always misspelled. Anyway, then we will continue with some presentations about experience and cooperation opportunities. Then we're gonna have a session presenting specific opportunities in countries outside Europe. So we have different groups of countries, like emerging economies, industrialized countries. So you're gonna see what kind of opportunities are available for European, but also for other participants to be involved in the programs of those countries. It's a brief presentation, but it will give us, it's brief because there are many countries presented, but still it's the beginning. So if you have ideas, then you can discuss with the people from those countries that are here. And then we have the training sessions. So we have a big one and a smaller. The two training sessions are gonna be in parallel. So the first, let's say the main training about the INCO experts starts with a couple of presentations about innovation and how innovation should be taken care in Horizon 2020 and maybe in projects, and what kind of innovation networks are existing. So it will be like a training about what is available. Then it's going to have a very useful presentation from the European Research Council, focusing on the opportunities for countries outside Europe to participate in the European Research Council program. And finally, a focused presentation about the fellowship program, the Marie Sklodowska-Curie program, to give us a brief overview, again, what opportunities are available for third countries. In parallel is a 30-person training specific on Japanese programs. So if you think that Japanese programs or the Japanese environment, the research environment, it could be useful for you or for your clients in your country, this training is going to give you a very brief but still detailed overview of what kind of Japanese programs are available and what opportunities are for Europeans or for other countries to be involved and participate in these programs. So there are like 2 or 3 places left for the second one because it's a small room. So if you still want to choose the second training, you have to go to the reception and register. So this is, and because this is the right spelling, because people are asking what is the PP way, and the spelling was wrong all the times. I don't know if you know PP. The idea of this session was to, well, I have some friends in Sweden. They told me that PP way is what PP is. You can do whatever you want. You don't care if it is normal or if it is abnormal, or you can sleep on the tree, you can sleep on the floor. Is everything? So what the PP session is exactly that. So we have the floor for you. So you can, we gave it the opportunity for you to present any kind of issue that could be interesting for the rest of us. So there is not a specific agenda. And we have so far, if we can go, I think, to the next slide. Yeah, we have these 6 presentations that, very short presentations. So everyone is going to talk for 4 or 5 minutes, and then we're going to have like 4 or 5 minutes for some interaction. So it will be very PP, but still very focused. So this is today's program, and I think the first speaker is George. The floor is yours, George.
Good morning. I'm going to talk about who paid the bill yesterday. It's this project, in Contact 2020. And I'm going to talk about why they paid the bill. The In Contact series is a series of projects that started back in 2008. And the idea is to create a network of people who are experts in international cooperation, and they work together to create a support mechanism. And this support mechanism is in turn there to support researchers and researchers who want to collaborate together. So In Contact 2020 is the third one in this series. It only started in January, so it's only 6 months into the project right now. It's following 2 very successful projects that finished, the first one in 2009 and the second one in 2013. The previous one, In Contact One World, was quite successful. It ran for 4 years. It basically created the whole infrastructure for INCO NCP network. And In Contact 2020 was the follow-up in order to make the transition from FP7 to the Horizon 2020 framework program. So it's a 2-year program. It only started now. It has a funding of 1 million, and that's where the bill came from. And it's funded by the European Commission under FP7, not Horizon. So the partnership is probably known to everyone. Praxi Network is the coordinator. We have partners from all over the world, as you can see. There's a nice geographical dispersion, as you can see here. We would love to have more coverage. There are a couple of continents missing, but it's still very nicely spread out. As I said, they continue the work of the previous projects, and the idea is to have 2 aims. One is to promote Horizon 2020 and international cooperation on Horizon 2020, which is not as straightforward as one would think. And of course, to continue to support the network of national experts, mainly the people who are in this room today, and to try to establish new connections if possible. So In Contact 2020 is using various tools, and it uses various ways to achieve its goals. The prime one is the conference that you are participating in, the conference series, the INCO conference series. Since it's a 2-year project now, we only get to have 2 conferences within the framework of In Contact 2020. the next year, we had a very nice invitation yesterday by Dr. Zing for the 6th INCO conference, which will be held in Beijing. At the same time, we have training events and we have info days events. And I'm going to show you a quick list of what we are planning, and hopefully we'll exceed it as we did in the previous one. And of course, activities to enhance NCP capacities. This is basically training for INCO NCPs and exchange of best practices, establishing new benchmarking techniques, and so on. So I'm starting with the INCO conferences, and as you can see, we're almost done with the 5th one. And we have to start planning on the 6th one, which will be more difficult to plan because it will be held in China. We have a provisional title, Joint Innovation and Common Prosperity. And the original idea was to focus this time on industrialized and emerging economies. This year was ENP area, and the next one is industrialized and emerging economies. The link underneath, you can see it's now live for the 5th INCO conference, but soon it will transition into the new one on the 6th one, and all information will be posted probably there. So in the framework of In Contact 2020, as I said, the idea is to organize training events and to organize regional workshops. So according to the DOW, you have to organize 8 info days and 7 regional workshops. We usually do not organize the number that we put in the proposal. We organize much more. This was true for the In Contact One World. We exceeded by far the number of events that we have planned. For info days, as you can see, this is the breakdown. I'm not going to stay here much more. I'm just going to say that we already had an info day in Cambodia in April, and we have one next week in Morocco, and there's a couple of more coming up. Most of them will be by the end of 2014, and most probably most of them in 2015. We also organize regional workshops, and as you can see here, unfortunately, we had one in Thailand. It was canceled. It was postponed, actually, not canceled. Hopefully, will take place very soon. And we had one in Uruguay in the beginning of May. It was very successful. I'll show you a picture afterwards. So basically, this is the overview of the plan for In Contact 2020. We hope to have a much bigger impact on that. Another tool that we are using, except from events, is the INCO Wiki, and most of you, I hope, are familiar with it. It has been the main tool for exchange of information. It works much better than email, and it has 40,000 registered users, which is an exceptional number. It has been developed in the previous projects, and now it's in dire need of restructuring and probably a facelift. And this is one of the things that we're going to discuss tomorrow in our In Contact 2020 project meeting, because we need this tool to become autonomous at some point. It has to function on its own and shouldn't actually work under strict supervision from the partners of In Contact. You can see the link under this. This actual graph was presented to the Commission from our report. You can see that the growth of the wiki is really impressive from its launch in May 2009, and now in the end of 2013, it almost tenfold growth of its pages and content. And the same holds for the page views. We have about 700,000 page views, which is extremely impressive. Finally, we like to communicate, and Wiki is one way, but the most appropriate and the most interesting way is to produce material like infographics, like the one you see on your right, and this excellent photo book that was created. We think it's one of the best works that have come out from this project. Speak with Many Voices is a photo album. You can go on the wiki and you can find the link and download it, and I urge you all to do so because it's really remarkable. So I'm going to finish with a couple of slides, and I will pose a few questions. In Contact is funded by FP7, and its idea is to help the transition between FP7 and Horizon 2020. When the proposal was written, it was written under the rules and conditions and the environment of FP7, but this has changed dramatically in Horizon 2020. It's a new reality, new rules, new structures implemented. So, for example, you can see the NCP structures in Europe, and I'm going to browse quickly through them. There are about 20 of those, but there's no INCO NCP there. So we're out of the picture, actually. International cooperation has been somehow hidden within Societal Challenge 6, which I'm not sure it's a wise move. I think it's a wrong move. International cooperation does not stand out as a separate pillar, but now it's spread out through various activities and various thematic areas, which is not really helping in the idea of promoting international cooperation and promoting the national character of the Horizon 2020 project. So in third countries, the European Commission has asked to appoint one person only who is going to be the contact point for the Commission. I'm not sure that they have really decided on the name yet. They call them Horizon 2020 NCPs or coordinators or NCP coordinators, but they put the Horizon 2020 and that's the one person they want to talk about. The third countries are allowed to use any structure of NCPs they want. They can keep the previous one, they can initiate new ones, but the European Commission does not really care about the structure they have. They only want to know one name that they can contact. This is not very efficient, and for me, I'm going to explain why. The reason is that in Europe, the NCP structures are there, so there are thematic NCP networks. So international cooperation within Europe is easier. If you do not have an efficient or if you do not have an established NCP structure in a third country, then there is no way you can participate in this network, and then you lost all ties to what's happening, and you cannot promote the participation of your country in programs like this. So until now, the INCO NCPs were working on this, actually, to try to get the research of their country, talk to the correct networks and try to get them in. But right now, having just one person, a contact person who is dealing mostly administratively on the Horizon 2020 is making things much harder. So basically, the INCO NCPs, for me, is like the control tower, and now you're operating with that one. So basically, the Commission says that, okay, planes that are already in the air, they can talk to each other, and they can work together, not crash, but it's very difficult to get any new planes on the air. Okay, so third countries that participated in various programs so far, European programs, they have established some ties, but through this, new ties are impossible to get established. So this is my personal opinion. I've given it before. I don't know how politically correct it is, but I'm going to say it anyway. I urge people from third countries to adopt an NCP structure similar to the one that EU countries have. It's the most efficient way to work. This structure, although the EC is not really particularly interested in knowing about it, they don't mind knowing about it. So if you have it, communicate it to them. Probably the right person will get in the right list and will get the information flow that they need. So another suggestion is that appoint as Horizon 2020 coordinator, the person that the European Commission wants to talk to, the former INCO NCP, or have the new Horizon 2020 coordinator work closely with the former INCO NCP. That's the only way you can transition into this new system and be effective. If you cannot do any of the above, do only the last. I mean, in this transitional period between these two programs, you have to have some connection between the former structure and the new structure. And this is why I'm saying that there is a problem. This is a very rough calculations. I did it at 1 o'clock in the morning, but bear with me. It's not a trend, but it shows that in the previous INCO conferences, there was a steady participation of about 150 people. We roughly get 100 this time, and most of the participants not here are from third countries. Okay, so this shows there might be some confusion of who should participate and why. This is from the workshop, the regional workshop in Uruguay, and I'm not showing this to show my face, I'm there, but I want to show that there is so much interest. This is Latin America and Caribbean countries regional workshop, and there is so much interest in the Horizon 2020. So third countries do want to participate, and they do want to know about Horizon 2020. But there is now no support mechanism about this. And this is also something which shows that there is quite an interest from third countries to participate in Horizon 2020. People go into the wiki and they seek information. So the interest is there. There is a definite and registered interest from third countries to participate, but now they're losing the support mechanism that existed there. So InContact is basically this bridge, but we don't know where it should land. And the problem is that we have the INCO NCP network on the one side, which was FP7, but we haven't decided what's the structure in Horizon 2020 is going to be to support international cooperation. Maybe there is no structure, actually, and this is the most frightening part. So we will try to communicate this to the Commission and to raise our fears about where things are going. I hope this trend that I showed earlier about the participation in conferences is not going to continue. And we will try to remedy this if possible and quickly. So please stay tuned. InContact will try to keep you updated on what's happening and if we are able to change a few things. We have some various media that you can use and learn more about us. Thank you so much.
Questions? Oh, all right. Yeah, the microphone is coming. Yes, let's start from here and then there, and then everybody will speak. To the gentleman over there, yes.
Thank you. My name is Masa. A team from Uganda. Thank you, George, for that very insightful presentation. Unfortunately, I have a feeling there's a lot of lamentation in terms of what has not been done? Because certainly you've demonstrated the real good significance of this INCO contact business. Now, did you try to suggest a way forward in terms of maintaining these or anything else similar to that because of the significance it has played? And then secondly, INCOWiki is a very important platform. And now that you're exiting, who is going to be responsible for maintaining it and updating and keeping the information that we need? Thank you.
Very good questions, both. Okay, the first one is we're still in the first few months of Horizon 2020, and we try to find our step, and the Commission is trying to find their step. They started to realize that there is a problem when it comes to organizing international cooperation now. They have some feedback. They know that there is a lot of questions of how things should be done, but they have nothing solid. So my suggestion has been, and will be tomorrow at the project meeting, is to take some action and try to communicate officially to the Commission and say that within the framework of the 5th INCO conference, there were some problems that were identified, there are some questions raised, and we think that there is truly a problem, and we should come and discuss to see how we should proceed. But we haven't done anything so far because this is a transitional period, right? And the Commission still hasn't have a complete list of Horizon 2020 coordinators. They're still compiling it. One of the most difficult problems that we had organizing this conference is, who do we invite? Do we invite former INCO NCPs or the new Horizon 2020 NCPs? Both are valid choices because from now on, Horizon 2020 NCPs are the people who are going to be officially nominated and contacted by the Commission. But the actual experience and the actual contacts and network lies with the former INCO NCPs. So there is a discontinuity in this. This is your first question, I think. The second one is about the wiki. The Commission, last time we discussed about this, they wanted the wiki to be transformed into a tool which is self-sustained. Now, for a tool like this to be self-sustained, you need to have a community to support it. And this community is gone. I don't think that the new Horizon 2020 NCPs will go and try to keep the wiki going. Right now, it is working because people who are INCO NCPs feed in information. This will die out. I'm pretty sure about this. So the answer to your question is that after In Contact 2020 finishes, no one is going to be there to take care of the wiki, and this is a valuable tool that will be lost. Unless we have something else in place afterwards, or we have a sustainable network that maintains the wiki, then it's gone. That's my prediction.
Yes. To the lady, please, your name and country and organization.
My name is Mabatu Ndwandwa from South Africa. My question is, since the project is only 2 years, I mean, if there's no decision as yet, what's going to happen, especially for those countries that had shown interest, and especially from Africa, and they had wanted to continue participating? And I mean, is there any concrete thing that we can get within this year, whilst the H2020 has just been launched and people are quite keen to participate?
If I understood your question correctly, is what's happening after 2 years? Okay. The idea about this project and the project and the call where this proposal was submitted was that it wouldn't take more than 2 years to transit to Horizon 2020 and everything would be working afterwards. But this is not the case. By destroying the INCO NCP network, you damage it and you don't have anything in its place that the transitional period would work, the in contact would actually bridge those two structures together, and then it will continue afterwards with something else in a different form. Since there's nothing on the other side, a network in Horizon 2020, then it's a truly real problem, and probably it will end up in completely severing ties with third countries. That's a real danger, actually. There is, I think, some ideas about maybe continuing on INCOs, but
I don't know if I can just, yes, I will come to the next, just a very small comment on this. No, I don't know anything. I mean, maybe some people tell me that they heard that they will continue. I don't have any information on my side. What I can say is that some years ago, when it was another INCO conference, it were also the mid-term review of the FP7. So then the evaluators that were there, everybody was fascinated of what was happening. So that was actually reflected in the mid-term evaluation. And then I guess that reflected also for the next call that was for the continuation of In Contact. I believe that because now it is also the time that is the final review of FP7, and there are a lot of reviewing taking place. Maybe some of you have been interviewed. So I think that if a positive feedback is reached to the Commission or a need of such an activity, then we'll continue. If not, and I'm not dogmatic with this, so if something like this is not the case, it is okay. I'm not dogmatic that something has to continue because it is now. But if I truly believe that if there is a feedback like this and is a positive outcome, then I guess the Commission has no, will just continue or think something similar. I don't know if it's going to be this or something else. But this is just a personal opinion. Yeah, I don't have something. I have heard that some countries, I mean, member states are supporting an idea, but still, I don't know what is going to happen. Yeah. Yes, we have another question there, and then we'll see.
I'm Aldous Strubel from South Africa. I think we must just be a little realistic here also. I think we all agree that INCO was very valuable, and it served a specific purpose. But it's challenging to hear this dependency type of speak that's been raised so far. The intention of Horizon 2020 is to integrate international cooperation with all the programs. And in essence, that's the nature of research, that it's global and that it's international, right? So the purpose of INCO up to now and for the few months that it will continue, I think has been very valuable. But let's continue now with handling all the information that is available for participation in Horizon 2020 in the context of international cooperation, as opposed to seeing international cooperation as a standalone component. The intention of Horizon 2020 is to integrate this, and because the nature of the structure of the framework programs previously was not so clear on international cooperation, the purpose of this program has been achieved, so to speak. So, you know, words like severing contact and what now for countries and so on, I don't think bode too well, right? I know you'll disagree. Most countries have in-country programs to facilitate cooperation, which implies international cooperation. So it is a very important exit that's lying ahead now. But it is challenging to view international cooperation as a standalone to the concept of cooperation and international research. So I don't think it's such a dire environment. Let's integrate with the programs that we have. And certainly there's lots of information available to facilitate partner searches, international collaborative activities, groups for applying and participating and so on.
Okay. I'll just make a brief comment about this. You are correct. We have to be realistic. And international cooperation integrated into thematics, it's a pretty good idea for me. Because at some point, you have to work at a level where people, experts on a specific thematic, talk to each other, and they organize each other. The problem is this. In many countries, there is no NCP structure. There is very little flow of information, and there has to be someone who is dedicated, at least most of his time, to follow up and try to disseminate information within his country. I agree that Horizon 2020's idea about integrating international cooperation in thematics is the ultimate goal. You need this to be your final point. But I think going from FP7 to Horizon 2020 was too abrupt, and it didn't transit as it should have been. If every country had established a basic NCP structure, okay, not a full one with 20 NCPs, thematic NCPs. If they had an NCP structure, then this would work. Right now, there are many countries that they have only one NCP. Usually, it's the NCP coordinator. The NCP coordinator has a different function, actually. Okay, it's only a title he gets and an appointment, but he doesn't put many hours on this. So pretty much, there is a bottleneck in the information flow that has to reach the country. It's true for many countries. This is a problem I saw when we went to Uruguay last month. There are a lot of people who do not get the information. They do not know how to get the information. They seek partners in Europe, but they do not know who to contact. Okay? So what you are actually implying about the integration is true. It's the final phase, but we're not there yet because we don't have the support mechanism in each country, right? It has to be built first. If every country was obliged to create an NCP structure, then this would work fine. But they don't. They only work with one person or two at the most, an NCP coordinator and the INCO NCP, and that's it. And this is a really big problem. And that's why I'm saying we're severing ties, because in a country which cannot support more than one person and part-time as an NCP, it's not going to get the information they want. And the research institutes are not going to go and find partners in Europe just like that. They do not know who to talk to. Okay? So for me, it's the final phase. It's correct. It's the right way to do it, but it came too soon, I think.
Thank you, George. I will not make any comment because I don't want to manipulate the discussion. We have, in the first row, I see 4 hands so far. Let's start first, second, third, and I saw a 4th one. Okay.
Thank you, George, for your presentation. And Nondas apre. All the partner of In Contact project. I want to be an active part also for the Commission. I want to remember you, because I don't know if there are here some NCP coordinator, that last year, 29th of January, I attended a meeting organized by the Commission, by Alan Cross, and I underlined the importance of the INCO NCP. Why? What I say is Treber. Some countries, third countries, now you have a national programs open to EU researchers, but who will give this information in EU? Means the importance of the INCO NCP for European. But an added value for the Commission, it's also important for your country to have this kind of network, what say George. So what we can do? We can do something for the Commission, a letter two letters. One letter to Robin Smith, the new commissioner first, but it's too late probably because it's the end of this year. Three letters. One to the new commissioner, to the General Director Robin Smith, three Alan Cross, and the fourth is for the new ITRE, with the new European member of the new European Parliament. In which, in this letter, we have to stress the importance for both, for Europe and for the cooperation with the countries that are not Europe. The added value for our researchers, because in this case, the Commission can reflect about why they want not to continue this network. If you remember, in the first draft of Horizon 2020, we don't have specific programs like science in society, now in science with and for society. They don't have an NCP network, now they have the NCP network. So don't think that the Commission is a block, means that they are not flexible, but they have to understand the importance of this network. Means not to wait for the reviewer of the FP7, but we have to stress the importance to be part of this network. Instead, the Commission, they don't know anything about us. Believe me, also the different general director means you say now with the new structure of Horizon 2020, international cooperation like social and economics items are horizontal in all the challenges, in all the CAT and so on. It's true. But who is really interested in? Means that you have to stress them, the results that we reach for different countries, and the added value for them. I wanted to give you an example. Infrastructure. We stress the importance of the international cooperation in infrastructure, the first pillar of Horizon 2020. But now they change the mentality. Oh, yes, we are interested, but. Of course, we have to say something concrete. Instead, the Commission, they are not interested to launch a new network because say, if the people, all the countries are not interested, why we have to launch another bureaucratic network, another something that probably nobody are interested in. So this is my concrete suggestion to organize all together. For the countries that are not European, probably it's good to ask your minister to sign this letter, because it's a political request. It's a political request, but this is something.
Thank you, Diasina. I think it would be interesting to hear also what the representatives of different countries are saying. So we have the gentleman on the back, and then it's here in front, and then it's there, and it's here.
Mark Bradley from Australia, from Casey in Australia. Casey is a bilateral program. We're trying to promote interactions between researchers and SMEs, Europe and Australia, and vice versa. So it's, I was just talking to my colleague here, who's our Brussels councillor, and because I've been worrying, listening to this conversation has been quite useful for me, because we've been trying to set up an NCP network in Australia based on this bilateral program. And it's been challenging, because I was pretty heavily involved in doing that. I've tried to get a lot of people from industry involved and from technology commercialisation, incubators, government, as well as federal government entities. And the biggest issue that I've had with many of those people that I contacted was, what is the value proposition for them to be involved in an NCP network? And it's quite a hard one to answer because it's a little bit nebulous. It's kind of like, oh, well, you get to access the network of networks and friends of friends and so forth. But in a country the size of Australia, that's probably not, everybody knows everybody anyway. So I'm just making these comments. One of the things that I've been wondering is, could we in Australia set up a bigger network? And I'm starting to think that maybe we don't need it because we've already got a lot of people, probably a sufficient number. But I wondered if you did that, how do you pay for this in a third country? Who do you have to convince to support an NCP network? Because it is a foreign concept, literally, way down under, and probably in many other parts of the world outside of Europe. So this is a general comment, and I'd be interested in feedback.
Okay, let me just give you a very brief comment, because this came up again in our regional event in Uruguay, and somebody said, okay, how do I support this network of NCPs in Brazil? Do you have money to pay them? I mean, it's almost a full-time job. And the answer is no. You do it because you care about it. And you won't get many people volunteering for this. It's impossible. The other question, which is related, and it's also very important, what is the level of the expert? Is he a PhD student? Is he a student? Does he have a specific background, academic background? Because if you're talking, and this is also connected to the question that you raised before, if you're talking about incorporating international cooperation at the thematic level, then scientists should talk to a scientist, okay? And the scientists in a third country cannot find time, and unpaid time, to participate in these networks in addition to his research, in addition to other administrative things that he has. He has to appoint someone who is lower level, and this person has to talk with the academics from European countries, for example. So you don't have the money to pay someone to do this full time. The people who are supposed to do it at the academic level are too busy to do it, and they have to go and appoint someone who is at a lower level, who is inexperienced, does not have enough contacts, do not know how to handle things. And this is suddenly lost. And when your PhD student who is involved in this afterwards finds a job, then he stops, and this has to be passed on to someone else. So basically, building an NCP structure in a third country is almost impossible because no money is involved. And people are overworked, okay? They actually do more work than they have to. And giving them this extra task is almost impossible to manage. So in most countries, people decline to be NCPs. It's simple as that. So you have to work with the hypothesis that you're going to have the minimum number for NCPs, and that's one or two. And if one is the NCP coordinator, which is an established position, and it's a contact point, usually a governmental one, then you have to have someone else who is handling and filtering the information. So there's no way to support it.
If I could just a very, very quick comment also. There was, this is how it is the NCP networks made. They are very diverse. This is the same in Europe as well. There was the last study that was, at least the last one that I know, was performed in FP6, and I have it, I can send it to you. It's very interesting because it shows how the different NCP structures are in Europe. You will see like 20 different structures. Some of them are paid, some of them are voluntary, some of them are just one person. In some cases there are 20 people. In some cases are private consultancies, in some cases are ministries, some cases are universities. So it's a very diverse profile, and this is the same case for the third countries. So we have cases very quickly like South Africa, that they have a more established mechanism, or Egypt has a different model, or South Korea or Thailand, and then we have other countries that is just someone in a university, but sometimes he has also his own agenda. So there are very diverse profiles. I have my opinion what is the best, but I think it's useful to have a look and see that there is not one model to go with. I think if you have the money, it's good because if you have the money to give to the NCPs to do the work, then it's more committed work. So they have to do something and deliver something. But if not, then you have to find some people that for some reason they want to contribute to this. But I don't think this is really a big discussion, and yeah. I think it's Camila, and then it's Itzi, then it's you. So it's, yeah.
I'm Kamila Magdieva from Kazakhstan. I'd like to support suggestion of Diasina and to say some words about Central Asia, which is really missing in contact. But if in future you will do something for the future project, I hope that Central Asia will be on the board. But I'm afraid that without our action, Commission will not take into account that necessity of continuation of in-contact activity. As I have seen so far from the beginning of Horizon 2020, there is no any calls for proposals for in-contact, for INCO activity. Even in the list of NCPs, INCO, NCP is missing. Indeed, if we will see that I am as Horizon National Contact Point mentioned in the line of inclusive society, something like this, which concerns only social activities. But INCO, NCP is very important. I'd like to tell you that we have used some experience of in-contact project, as well as other projects concerning INCONet projects, ERANET projects. And finally, in Kazakhstan, we have created some kind of professional NCP system, which is supported by the budget of our government. Government made this step in order to bring closer Kazakhstan to European Union innovation and research activities. So if we will do really like Diasina said, to act something, to send letters to these four main persons, or to share our experience, saying that in contact not only reflected to bring people together, from different parts of the world, but also reflected to creation of some kind of new systems within the country, and help it very much to strengthen international cooperation in research, technology, and innovation. It will be, I think, helpful for us in future and for the Commission, because indeed Commission is flexible. Commission will support us if the project is very profitable, if indeed very useful for over the world. And now we can see people from different parts of the world. Indeed, we can reflect some, to action of the Commission and to do something real in future. And I'd like to say that taking into account suggestions of the Commission, some projects in Kazakhstan, we have created a real good NCP system. Now we have people who can support 14 thematic activities, but at the same time, we really need somebody who will work professionally for international cooperation NCP. And in this case, we are ready to do everything from our side. I think advisory board is agree with me. And if it is necessary, we can start tomorrow from our meeting to do something after getting opinion of all our participants today. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to repeat, because I'm feeling awkward, this is not the idea to push for another in contact. Let's discuss it. Maybe it's a different concept that we would like to go on. I mean, of course, I'm coming from the in contact.
No, probably it is not next in contact, but why not?
Okay.
Why we have to forget about very positive and very really helpful activity in contact, as I'm not saying about INCONet Central Asia or some regional projects. In contact unites people not by the region, but by the experience, and shares best experience. For example, our session yesterday, it was so helpful that we decided that we can use some experience of in contact to organize a session yesterday for our next Astana Economic Forum, which brings together 8,000 people from over the world. So,
if I may,
so
one more. The answer is not another in contact? The answer is a change in mentality, and it can happen within the remaining 1.5 years of this project. I mean, it's doable, but you have to have the Commission and act on it, okay? You don't have to have another in contact and another in contact. No, it's
maybe as a shape,
the
but
INCO.
problem is NCP INCO. Like now we stress the importance to have the SMEs NCP. Yes. We organize with Marcel Chaton in Israel, with the other colleagues in Europe, to have an NCP for SMEs. Because we are
Ladies
in the same
and gentlemen,
situation.
the PP
No,
way
but
is
we are-
going to start in a while.
Sorry, Nonda,
No.
it's the same. So we have to stress the importance to have the INCO NCP.
No, I
What we
agree
need
with you.
for the
No, no.
Commission is other.
No, I agree. I'm just trying to take my role as a chair of the session. There are. Let's take the 3 last comments or questions that they have expressed, and then we will move to the next one. And then I hope we'll have time to discuss. I know that this is the more important part of the day. So we have no. It's first. It's the guy, the gentleman. Then it's the lady from Egypt, and then it's you. All right.
So, Ichi from the Japan, and I was actually trying to suggest the In Contact to be a platform NCP coordinators, but having, well, in the absence of INCO NCPs, but having heard your presentations, I got 2 questions or clarifications requested. And one is that you clearly mentioned that the Commission is now requesting that third countries identify only one person, NCP coordinator, as a window. But you know, we are now trying to establish an NCP system in Japan, and I've never had that kind of instructions. I'm an NCP coordinator, but I was never instructed such kind of thing. This is completely new. And another thing is that other NCP coordinators are really an administrative, rather high-level person, not really touching the day-to-day activities. That's not the case, at least in Japan. I'm the one down to the earth doing the promotion every day. So I just wanted to know what are the situations, what are the policies of the Commission, and to somehow reflect into my activities.
Okay, very quickly, because I know that we don't have any time. The Commission sent in the beginning of February, if I'm not mistaken, a letter to all third countries requesting to appoint a Horizon 2020 coordinator, and they sent it to the embassies in Brussels, to their embassies in Brussels. So everybody got one. They followed it up at the end of February, I think, beginning of March, saying, please appoint one if you have not done so. And their third step, I don't know if they have actually done it so far, is they will automatically appoint as Horizon 2020 coordinators the previous NCP coordinators. So whichever country does not act on it, they will officially take the person who was NCP coordinator making Horizon.
Sorry,
2020.
I'm not sure if it is the NCP coordinators or the INCO NCPs.
The NCP coordinators.
The NCP coordinators, okay.
The NCP coordinators.
Okay.
So,
sorry, I think also the Commission has a lot of confusion at this point, because it's a different the role of NCP coordinator, the different the role of NCP. And of course, the NCP coordinator is to coordinate the network in the country, but not to provide any services, and maybe to discuss with the Commission some issues. But it's the NCPs that actually provide the services and do the communication with the European networks. So, because they needed to have someone, as they are not INCO NCPs, they try to find a hybrid formula. So they say, okay, name us someone that is going to be the contact in your country. Of course, you are free to design any kind of network inside the country. But it's not like FP7 that you could officially nominate transport NCP, and could be, as far as I know, and could be, I don't know if they still you can establish like transport NCP and can be listed in Cordis as transport NCP. You can do it?
They do not ask for it, but you can do it.
All right, okay.
So many countries, third countries accept actually having more than one.
Yes. Yeah.
But they're not going to be contacted directly. They're going to, everything is going to go through the Horizon 2020.
All right, so we have Zainab, and then the last one.
Thank you, George. Well, I have very short questions and comments concerning the letter. Actually, the first one was sent in December, 20th of December. I have a copy.
Okay.
And they were inviting the third countries to nominate an NCP for Horizon 2020 and to establish a network of Horizon 2020 NCP system. And they sent the list of all the NCPs. So this where the confusion started. You nominate one, and this is the list to nominate from, and it is not the contact person. And we have, through the communication with the delegation, the EU delegation in Egypt and the representative of the Commission, they asked us to nominate as much as NCPs as we want, and actually their name is on the cordis after our letter. And actually, a number of these NCPs are participating in the NCP networks, and they are communicated directly to them, and the Commission are communicating directly to them, not through the Horizon 2020 NCP coordinator. The question is, I need someone to tell me what the Commission is after. Do they need the third countries to be communicated with them or to be part of the network? Because for me, I have a personal experience that I've communicated with the national coordinator, the coordinator NCP's network in Brussels, and they said this is only open for member states NCPs. So this is documented, that you cannot participate in the meeting because this is only for the European member states NCPs. So whether to nominate an INCO, whether to nominate a coordinator, are we invited to really take place in the networks of NCPs, and what are the role? I know this, but I have to express this question because actually on this, I've been communicating with him since several months and asking, what should we do? How to be effectively participating? This is...
We don't have clear instructions from the Commission. They keep changing.
The other thing is regarding the inclusive, the priority of the sixth priority. Now when you nominate an NCP for science in and for societies, does it mean that this person is the NCP for the whole theme or for this specific theme? Because if this so, then this person will take care of the whole theme, the inclusive and innovation and reflective society and so on. So this is a question. The second thing the third, I want to echo the NCP of Japan, that it is not likely that the NCP coordinator is working on the administrative level. Usually they are really immersed in the work with the research community as well as with the work of the NCP on the Commission's level. Thank you.
Well, a very quick comment, and then we can discuss it on the break also. In FP7 also, in most of the thematic networks, they didn't invite the NCPs of third countries. They said because of the budget, then they said because this is only for the member and associated member states. The truth is that very rarely third country NCPs have been participating in the thematic network, at least as far as I know. The only network that was actually inviting in all the NCP meetings the third countries was the INCO NCP network. That was a decision of the Commission. And that's why this conference initially was hosting the NCP meeting, and in the first years we were hosting the second day the NCP meeting, so everybody was also participating. But this is not the case in the thematics, and as far as I know, there is not such a will, at least not something that I know in the networks that I'm involved, like climate change. They never say that they're planning to extend the network to invite also third countries. This is what I know. Yes. Let's go to the last comment or question.
Yes.
just a comment on the contact person. I'm from the Scientific Research Council in Kingston, Jamaica, and the short called SRC, which is a government's agency for science, technology, and innovation. SRC itself is the contact point for the program, but there is a particular person at the senior management level within the council that is the contact person. That person's job description has quality management, projects management, under which the NCP would fall. So maybe in looking at structures, maybe you would want to pin that contact point to a particular job description. That's what we do at SRC. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I suggest to close the session here now. And I don't know, maybe it's good to have the coffee break and continue afterwards. I don't know if it's ready, because it's only, or we can prolong a bit the session. What do you suggest?
Let's have a couple of presentations from the PPP way. And then
okay, let's continue with the presentations. I don't know, have you, everybody that has expressed, have you given the presentations outside to be, do we know, George?
we have a couple of ones. So,
okay, let's continue with the ones that we have.
Yeah. I think the first one is Rado.
All right.
Okay, so first question, hands up if you're from a country that cannot automatically get funding. Okay, a few. So this presentation is focused on you, but for the European people in the audience, this is also good information to understand the risks of including high-income third countries. So just quickly, these are some of the major third countries that cannot get funding. The European Commission doesn't produce a list like this. They have a list of all the countries that can get money, but everyone else that's not on the list, you have to think of who they are. So these are the major ones. Usually they will have to get their own funding from their national government or maybe some other international sources. But because they do not automatically get funding from Horizon 2020, this can create some risks. And of course, there are many risks involved in these projects, management risk, personalities, but I'm going to focus on the risks of what happens when you don't get funding for your participation. So firstly, in the proposal, I've seen this many times. We have had some Australians involved in helping develop a proposal. They put in time, they put in some of their own financial resources, and often they put in IP in developing the content of the proposal. And then 2 weeks before the proposal is to be submitted, the coordinator will say, no, we do not want you involved because you cannot automatically get funding, you do not already have your own funding, so you are risky for the proposal. And so after all of this effort, they're kicked out. And it creates a lot of bad conflict, personal conflict, and a lot of bad history then from that point. In the evaluation, so the first problem can lead to the second problem. If you have not been clear about how you will fund your participation, the evaluators may look at the implementation of the project and say, well, this implementation is maybe a little bit risky because the third country is unclear how they will fund their participation. So the score may come down. Now, this may or may not be correct for them to do, but the perception is that if it's risky, then they will give you a lower score. And often this will make the proposal invalid. It will be below the threshold. So because you have not been clear about your funding, or because you have not got your funding beforehand, you've put the entire proposal at risk. So suppose if you go through the first part and the second part, then you get to the negotiation phase, and At this time, the coordinator may ask you to demonstrate, where is your money now? You said you would get the money. Please show us you can get this money so we can start the project promptly. But of course, if many times this happens that they are not able to get the funding before the signing of the grant agreement, and because this is unclear, oftentimes the proposal will have to they'll have to withdraw the proposal. They'll have to cancel the entire project, which again creates bad personal vibes between all the partners. Another thing that can happen is I've seen many researchers. Actually, before I get to that, in Australia and probably in many other countries, if a researcher wants to submit a proposal, they do not need to get permission from the institution to be a member on a proposal. So they can go through all of this process, proposal, evaluation, but only when they has to sign the agreement does their institution then learn about this proposal. So what happens at this point, if you have not secured your funding, now you have to sign the agreement, so you go to your Vice-Chancellor or whoever needs to sign the proposal, they say to you, so where will you get this money? And sometimes the Vice-Chancellor feels like they are being blackmailed. If they do not sign the proposal and give you the money, then they are potentially creating a bad reputation for the institution. But on the other hand, they may not have the money, they may not understand the justification for the project, they've not been included in the discussions, so they may be forced to decline your request for funding. Okay, maybe you get through all of this process and you sign the agreement and you start the project. And some people are confident that even though they do not have the money to start with, maybe they can get it afterwards. They can apply for some competitive money. But if this money does not come, it's possible you may need to withdraw from the project. This may cause, again, the project to collapse because you may be a critical component of the project. A third issue, which is sometimes a problem if you get money from the Commission, is if there's some major movements in the currency, your initial budget may no longer be adequate to conduct your research. So you need to have Plan B to support the difference in the funding. Okay, so subsequently, if one of these things fails, your partners in Europe may blacklist you from ever being involved in projects again, because you have demonstrated that you have been very risky, maybe even untrustworthy when you're talking about that you're able to participate. Okay. So what should you do? The best strategy is to already have the money. If you already have some institutional money, some funding agency money for an existing project, and you can integrate this existing project into the new Horizon 2020 proposal, this is the easiest, lowest risk method of being involved. Secondly, if you really are critical to the project and to the objective of the call, perhaps you have specific equipment or location or capabilities, then examine the possibility of asking the Commission for funding. Now, you need to have the strong support of the coordinator of the proposal. If the coordinator does not agree with you, if they are not willing to support for you and fight for you in the negotiation, then this can become risky proposition. Some countries have mechanisms to support your involvement in Horizon 2020. Some countries don't, but some countries do have very explicit funding programs. This is worthwhile looking at. And strangely, not all researchers know that there is this mechanism available for domestic funding to join Horizon 2020. If none of these are applicable, try and get your funding from your third funding agency before you submit the proposal. Try and get the approved funding application before the proposal, so that you can tell your consortium partners and the Commission that you have the money, you're okay. And the last point is, if you cannot get your money beforehand, at least identify where you think you will get the money from, and what the possibility of getting this money is. Some domestic programs, they have a very low success rate, 5%, 10%, so this is a low chance of success. It makes it a risky option. But other programs may be more than 50%, maybe even 100%. So you need to say in your proposal that you will get money from your government's funding agency. The success rate is 90%, so you are secure. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Rado.
Questions?
Thank you for being quick. If there is one quick or two quick questions. Yes, one. Thank you. Lady on the back.
Claire McLaughlin, also from Australia. I think that, the main comment I wanted to make before everybody goes away from here assuming that there is no domestic money in Australia to support collaboration in any of these calls, there's not a great big specific scheme, but it is the case that some universities have got themselves very organised and are getting ready to match funding and to provide funding to their researchers who participate in Horizon 2020 calls. It's also the case that our National Health and Medical Research Council has a specific scheme, the European Union Collaborative Research Grants, to which Australian researchers can apply for money to match their participation in Horizon 2020. Just picking up on Rado's point about researchers whose institutions find out that they've applied as part of a consortium after the grant's been agreed, they're idiots. And our advice to researchers from the NCP network in Australia is you'd have to be crazy to not talk to your institution all the way through that process. So if anybody has a different view about what we should be advising researchers, I'd be really interested to hear it. Thanks.
Thank you, Rado. We'll have the time also to discuss it later on. Who is next? Camila? Really? Yes. This is the people, we can do it.
I'm very sorry, I didn't send you my presentation, and now I have nothing to do with me.
All right, you can talk by heart.
I'm so sorry, actually.
5 minutes, please.
Even less. Actually, I have presentations. Today something happened with my computer, I have no presentation. Okay, but I'd like just to tell very shortly. Organization of NCP system within the country, especially in third countries, is very difficult if your country has no any special research, technology, innovation, cooperation agreement with the European Union. Government thinks that there is no necessity to have NCP system within the country if you are not going to join to European technology programs like Horizon 2020, for example, or FP7. But government of Kazakhstan is very keen to join this technology and innovation activities of the European Union. Some years ago, within the FP7 in 2010, Kazakhstan has created system of NCP, which included 14 thematic NCPs in different fields of activity, and all these thematic NCPs belong to different ministries. Our experience shows that different ministries, which are not involved directly to innovation technology activities, are not able to support their own NCPs. For example, Ministry for Health couldn't support NCP for health. Ministry for Energy couldn't support NCP for energy, and they because Kazakhstan had no special instrument, tools to support NCP system. Finally, our experience shows that this system, having 14 different thematic NCPs under 8 different ministries, doesn't work. It is not effective to bring people closer to the program. Therefore, after our different experiments within the country, we solved that it will be, we took again a good experience of our Italian colleague, APRE, And government has just appointed our hosting organization, which is independent expert consulting board to promote scientific activity in Kazakhstan, which was created in 2010 by prominent academicians of Kazakhstan. And I was one of founder members of this organization. Now I'm director of this organization. And this hosting organization, now this independent expert consulting board, is hosting institution for all NCP system for Horizon 2020, 12 thematic directions, priorities, and 5 NCPs. And 4 of them are thematic and national coordinator. Government not just paying money to us on monthly basis, but the government has established this NCP for up to 2017, then we will see what will happen after that. And we have our real agenda, what we have to do every day. For example, NCP for health should do within this month 12 consultations in the field of health, ICT, and FED. So it means that she should have her own network of thematic institutions. She should appoint her contact points in these institutions and work with them on a permanent basis. And every day, 8 hours, she works for this activity. And now we see that it is more effective. I do hope that first calls of Horizon 2020 will be finished, and we will see how many people from Kazakhstan will participate in Horizon 2020 calls. And so this is next experience of Kazakhstan. Last year in Montpellier, and a year before in Johannesburg, we talked about this also already, but I'd like to say that most important thing that government pays real attention to this activity. Government likes to support this activity. And thanks to that, up to now, we had a number of joint activities with European Union. Last year, we could open European technology market for the Kazakh SMEs and industries, and we have organized an exhibition within the Astana Economic Forum with participation of more than 8,000 people from over the world. And this year, it was a special session at the Astana Economic Forum concerning the EU-KZ cooperation on basis of technology transfer and exchange of innovation ideas. Kazakhstan has its own state technology programs in different priorities. And in Europe, we have European technology platforms. This year, we could find possibility to discuss how to bring together these different technology programs, different technology approaches, and finally, we could sign some kind of memorandum of understanding between European technology platform for mineral resources and Kazakh state program for mineral resources. So this is a way how to bring people closer, and I'd like to tell you that our NCP in Kazakhstan works very active. Even Kazakhstan has no any agreements with European Union, but at the same time, we do some role to not only bring Kazakh society to closer to European society, but also we help to our Central Asian partners. And in any other projects, proposals now proposed to Horizon 2020, we keep this regional approach, and always we invite our Central Asian partners. So thank you very much for your attention. Questions?
I think that was really useful because we can see this kind of what we said before, different models in different countries. So that was an example that a radical change how Kazakhstan was. I remember in the very old times you were alone covering all the countries. Running from one place to the other. So
without any funding from the government. Our office worked without any funding, only thanks to our INCO projects, our Euronet projects, and other projects. But now we have real good support of the government, and government pays also money to us to organize some kind of international events, to invite experts from abroad. And also we can send our NCPs to different training activities. And I do hope that our NCPs will be really professional.
I don't know if there is a comment or a question on Camila's presentation.
Which is without presentation.
Yes. All right. So in any case, we'll stop now for a coffee break. We'll continue with the rest of the PP section afterwards. We'll be back at 11:15. So
thank you.
Use this time to have your some caffeine in your blood. All right. So the time is time is now to continue. All right. I'm also tweeting at the same time what is happening, so I'm not playing with my mobile. But if you follow us on Twitter, we can interact also more quickly sometimes. So we are continuing now with we have 4 more interventions in the PP way. So I would like to ask, I remind you, you have to be quick, and the idea is to give us some fruitful thought and then make maybe some discussion. So I will ask Daniel Kiran, is that correct, how I pronounce it? Daniela, all right. Hi, Daniela. You have, I guess your presentation is already in place. Thank you.
So, hello to everybody. Now we solve the mystery of PP, Lamstrung. You know, I didn't know what it's meaning until yesterday evening because, you know, in Germany, we have a carnival in each year in end of January, beginning of February. And my daughter, she is 8 years old. She was dressed as a PP. And I could use the picture of Slara here. I was looking on my laptop. I don't have the picture, but can be used in the future for PP because it's the perfect example for something like this. Maybe it's good to play the role of PP now and to ask you, I heard a lot of opinions. And the truth is always in the middle. This is my opinion. About European funds, we don't have funds for international cooperation, for NCP. But in the other hand, we have money, but they are in other calls, and we have to read the calls. I want to ask you how many of you have read the calls, Horizon 2020 calls? Okay, so 60%, it's not 100%. So we can talk about the problem when we read first of it, you know exactly, because if we go deeply, you will be surprised to see how many calls you can find in international cooperation. And also, I was a lot of years involved in what we used to say, the lady from Australia, domestic funds, instruction funds, regional instruction funds in East European countries. Is it somebody here from the region who have experience? Can you tell us, do we have funds in this field of international cooperation? I will tell you, not directly. But if we are looking deeply inside the calls, we will find a solution. And we have to think about like an entrepreneur. We are talking all the times about bridging the gap between research and innovation, about the companies. And I used to ask, it's not the case here because it's not the topic of our conference, how many companies are present here? Okay? Because why are we doing all this job? This is a brief discussion. So my presentation is about history, future collaboration, and Steinbeis. So who can tell me what represents? So I was working yesterday evening. What we have here on the left side, Athens. In the middle, I was inspired for a colleague of mine who ride the bicycle. Please tell me what we have there in that picture in the middle. Both of them, up and down. The Library of Alexandria. So we are working together. We have common history. We were talking about Wallachia also. We have culture. We develop friendship. This is international cooperation. We are writing proposal. I cannot write a proposal with somebody I don't like. I'm so sorry, it's like this. We start to be friends. So on the right side, on the left side, you will see Steinbeis. He tells us history. We are talking about 200 years ago. He was the first one who came this idea of technology transfer. You can think about technology transfer for 200 years. He was the first one who was talking about vocational schools for women 200 years ago, in terms of history, the mentality. And also he founded the dual system education. That's it. And now, networking, international collaboration, funding money. To be entrepreneur in your country, in your NCP point, to find money, we should not waiting all the time for money from the European Commission directly, a special line, a special call like this. We should think to find alone a solution. This is what we've done. In the middle, you will see DTC, Danube strategy. In Danube strategy in Europe, we don't have money. But we have a lot of activity around Danube strategy. We don't have money. The European Commission did not allocate a special line for Danube strategy. And I will tell you exactly the history. It started with Steinbeis, the foundation. We are talking about 1,000 technology transfer centers all over the world, and from these 600, they are in Germany. Steinbeis Europa Center, I'm coming from Steinbeis Europa Center. Maybe it's good to use this one. No. To point. Steinbeis Europa Center is one of these 1,000 technology transfer centers. We have also a university, a Steinbeis University. What is important to know, these 1,000, they are professors in the university who opened their own transfer center. Bottom-up approach. They are going out to the company, they are bridging the gap, they are talking with the company, they are asking them, they are going back with an order to develop something new. This is what is meaning Steinbeis. And Steinbeis Europa Centrum, it's founded 20 years ago. We are managers and project manager, we are working more and less for the small and medium enterprise for our region and for the university. We try to put them together with other regions all over the world. We are writing proposal. We are extending our networking. It's return of investment for our region because our government are asking us. We are not getting money from the government. We have to fund projects for us and for the region. And it's always in terms of money. It's a business if you want to think like this. You have to have this entrepreneurial way of thinking to find a low money. So, now Steinbeis Europa Center is involved in Danube strategy. What is meaning this? Did you heard about Danube strategy? A little bit. So
1 minute, please.
Yes, only 1 minute. So there are 14 countries among the Danube River, and we have a special strategy. We are the coordinator working group 8, technology transfer, and we develop some projects. So one of the projects, Danube Transfer Center, using our knowledge, here it's interesting for you, because here I'm coming to you. We develop this Danube Transfer Center using our knowledge, and we build up technology transfer center among the river. We have some pilot projects in East European country, and we had such a big success. We developed so many other projects that we decide to extend this project to other countries, other regions. We have a lot of letter of intents from Turkey, from EAP countries, so Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia. I'm focused more or less on this region. Ukraine, Belarusia, Tunisia, we get letter of intent. What is meaning this? This is meaning exactly what you are looking for. directly contact with European money, information, and we can put together your university from your region, and we can write proposal together. So we have No Gap, it's an INCO project in EAP region. Here we have Danube INCONet. It's starting all of them from a small project financed by our ministry. And he said, okay, now you have to think about a loan to go away with your idea. Nobody give it us. And we are looking after calls. Danube Pi. And if you look here, No Gap, we met with some other coordinators from other projects. They are here. From Hungary, from Austria, and we wrote together other projects. And it's extending, it's extending, it's extending. Thank you very much. That's its meaning. Networking. If you have questions.
Thank you, Claudia. Sorry, Daniela.
Daniel.
Yes, we have any questions, please?
Or we can have bilateral discussion during the break because they are under pressure.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's up to
Thank you for coming here today. All right, now, okay, my characters are very awful. I think it's Miss Animata Sal Diallo, is that correct? No? No. But you are not ready, or? All right. Okay, so Marianne Collin, in that case. Are you ready? Yes. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. How are you feeling? Well, I just have a question for Nandas. I'm not clear about who's Peppy or what's Peppy way. We were discussing yesterday at dinner what's the term, and I asked some colleagues today, and I thought, well.
Well, I just realized that you came late this morning because in the beginning of this morning I explained that Pippi, this lady, maybe you are too young. Do you know her?
No, not really.
All right. All right. So this is a Swedish. This is the character of a Swedish book.
Okay.
But was very popular in Europe in the 80s. And she was really crazy. She was doing whatever she wanted. She was living alone, although she was a small girl. She was sleeping on the floor, on the trees. She was so she was completely free. So the idea of this session is to keep it open for whatever idea, whatever you would like to say.
We have those kids in Mexico as well, so yeah. But those are boys usually. We have it's called Pepe, no? We have Pepe, but he's a man. Yeah. Well. Okay, thank you, Nandas. I want to present today a very successful program that we have been at the ministry where I work. I'm Marianne Collin. I work at the National Council for Science and Technology in Mexico. Some of you have known my colleagues, my previous colleagues. It's my first INCO meeting. However, I have been finding it very useful. And I wanted to present to you today, from our Direction of Technological Development and Innovation, we have been developing some programs, and this one has been very successful. We have been with Spain, France, and Brazil developing this. And this program is to support the implementation of research and development activities in business in international networks. I want to stress business, we're focusing in SMEs. We have the management and the promotion of Mexican companies in international technological cooperation programs. We support for technology transfer in the international business arena. And well, these are some of the sectors that the program is working on. So what's the project selection criteria? We have the interests of the international consortium. It has to be a company and a Mexican company, and also a company from Spain, France, or Brazil. They have to be placed in both countries, no? It has to be in any sector or technology area. They have to submit a scientific and technical proposal, and the results need to go to the market, no? It's the transfer of technology. It has to have technical capacity of the company to develop the project and to exploit the results, and it has to have this balance in the consortium. So somehow you're seeing some of the models that were used in previous framework programs. So this is the one with CEDETI, no, the Center for the Development of Industrial Technology. We provide the same, no, as I mentioned. It has to be, projects must be submitted by a Mexican entity coordinator. It can be research centers or companies in linking to Spanish entities under the scheme of consortium. The proposer should consider at least two, the leader and the partner Mexican participants. And as I mentioned, it's for improving and developing new products, process, services, or materials containing significant innovation and networking. So this is the model. We first started with Spain, and now we are working it with BPA France. It's the same scheme, actually, the same model. So it has been very useful, and I think what we're looking is at CONACYT, looking for other countries to develop this kind of model where you have the government, the research centers, and you have enterprises working together. So, well, just thinking about new ways of funding and working together, there's this example. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that was an excellent case, actually. And there is already a question. I have also a question, very brief one. If you have a special plan on specific areas or regions or countries that would like to, let's say, enlarge a similar activity. And then we can take the first question on the back from Australia, I think.
Yes, now we're developing, well, as I mentioned, with Spain, France, and Germany. We're going to start to working in and developing the same model. We have it with Brazil. I didn't present it because, well, it's a similar project, but I think this was not the audience for it, but we have it. And yeah, we want to, because it has been very successful, and we're linking it with our bilateral project, EUMEX Innova, that I will present on in the next session.
All right, okay. So we have a question on the back.
Yes, Mark Bradley from Casey. I'm interested in what metrics you've been using to allow you to come to the conclusion that you've been successful, because I find this is very important. I mean, we have the same thing in Casey. We're measuring everything we can to try and work out whether we've been successful in our various models of things we're doing. I'm interested in what you've put in place.
Yeah, with the time I couldn't share more slides, but we have some products that have been going into the market, and they're funded after they receive the funding from CONACYT and from CEDETI, let's say from Spain. They are still working. This is our fourth call that we were going to launch in the next days. And of course, I can share with Nondas then, and maybe we can put it on the website if you want a specific link related to which more information about the products that had been developed through this.
It seems like a quite flexible tool, and I think, I mean, if there is a will from some ministry or even, I don't know, in another level, they can be established relatively quickly. All right, I saw another, yes, please, your name and organization.
Hi, thank you. I'm Jenny Wilson from the UK. Just a quick question. Do you fund 100% of the research costs, presumably to the Mexican partners and, say, Spain to the Spanish partners, or do they have to cover some of the costs? Because in the UK we have similar programs, but they're expected to cover some of their costs, particularly if they're very close to market.
Mm-hmm. No, we do not fund 100% of the project. Usually it depends what they're asking for, but it's more than even 60% what we fund. No, it's approximately between 85%. And what they have to do is they don't have to put it in liquid funds. They can put human resources working on the project as well.
And sorry, what's the sort of scale of funding? Like thousands, millions?
It depends on the project, but we have been going, thousands, I would say. Still not millions.
All right, thank you.
Thank
you
you
for this excellent example. So, if we are not ready, we can go to Dilanthi Amaratunga, is that correct? Yes, that's right. All right. Yes, to Miss Dilanthi Amaratunga. I forgot to press the microphone, that's why I repeated your name again.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dilanthi Amaratunga. I come from Center for Disaster Resilience from University of Salford in the UK. By the way, before I sort of start, just very quickly going through the slides, anyone from the South Asian region here? Just one. Okay, so this project is actually specifically focused on South Asian region. So with that, I'll very briefly take you through some of the benefits, some of the challenges, and perhaps the way forward relating to Horizon 2020 research in this part of the world. Once again, I'm not going to sort of take you through the concept and the rationale. It has already been emphasized very clearly yesterday, how important the international cooperation is. But I suppose in the past, there haven't been any specific calls applicable to South Asian region, even though there have been a lot of calls for different other parts of the world. Bearing in mind that the South Asia is home for more than 40% of the world's absolute poor, and also sort of it contributes nearly 40% of the growth in the world's working age population. I suppose maybe the Commission decided that there need to be a kind of a research stream specifically for the South Asian region. And also having said that, the region actually experiences critical societal challenges of Horizon 2020. And we know the Horizon 2020 identifies 7 key critical challenges. And if you take the South Asian region as a whole, most of the countries actually face these challenges up to a great length. So in that sense, I suppose the rationale is quite clear. Within that framework, we actually sort of put forward this proposal entitled Cascade in meeting the European Commission's needs, particularly sort of aiming at compiling a regional position paper, which actually identifies global challenges and research priorities, and also at the same time to map and develop an inventory of national and regional stakeholders, including the NCPs, and I'll get into that a little bit later, and also at the same time to raise the awareness of the H2020 program in the region. So the scope, as you can well imagine, India is not part of this particular call because India has now been categorized as an emerging economy. Therefore, India is not part of the call, but we managed to sort of include all other countries in the region, varying sizes, varying cultures, very sort of vast differences as far as the culture and the societal issues are concerned. So you can see the 7 countries that were involved in this project. Once again, I'm not going to go through what the work packages were, but as I sort of said, we wanted to sort of create national position papers. That means 7 national position papers for 7 countries, plus a regional position paper and a key stakeholder mapping exercise. So we started the project about 8 months ago. What we have actually sort of, the initial identifying the global challenges phase had 3 phases. The first one is actually to do a policy analysis, just to understand what is actually happening in these countries at the moment. Yeah? So we actually we used a content analysis approach to find out the policy context that is taking place in those countries. And as phase 2, we actually carried out a very detailed set of interviews and focus groups. And so far, we have done well over 200 interviews covering all 7 countries in capturing the global challenges that are directly applicable to this region. And also along with that, we were asked by the European Commission to officially launch H22 in South Asia, and we actually picked up Sri Lanka as a location because of due to various reasons. So we had a really successful launch event for South Asian countries with almost 200 participants coming in from all the countries. So this is actually a picture where the UN ambassador, EU ambassador speaking at the event. I suppose with our experience so far, we have identified a lot of benefits that this type of collaboration brings into that part of the world. For example, of course, in most of these countries, you get a lot of sort of international experts who actually do not get the chance to contribute to European research if systems or if schemes like this is not in operation. So schemes like this actually give them a lot of opportunities to take part in international work. And at the same time, it actually provides exposure and visibility on the international stage. And also there are so many other benefits that we have so far found out. But having said that, of course, there have been a lot of challenges because we are dealing with 7 different countries, culturally very different, and in size and in economic climate, political scene, everything is so different. So these are some of the challenges that we have faced. But as researchers, we feel that challenges actually gives us further opportunities in trying to sort of deal with these issues. So of course, different national requirements, very different approaches to data collection, and also data transmission among participants, differences in different research traditions. I found it really difficult to understand how certain partners operate, but when I got into sort of learning about what is happening, it was actually very interesting. So linking, oh, sorry. Oh dear, I never thought that it has an edge. Sorry. Then as the forward view, we are going to actually do national position papers for all 7 countries, identifying very specifically what the societal challenges are. And based on the 7 national position papers, we are going to do a regional position paper. And alongside that, we are planning to continue with the Horizon 2020 training in those countries. And also there will be stakeholder maps and also a policy brief with recommendation to the European Commission, capturing the key issues or research needs covering these countries. So those are the sort of key points that I want to share. But based on the discussion that we had this morning, as far as the NCP situation is concerned, at least on the 7 South Asian countries, what is happening is, of course, we, as part of the Horizon 2020 launch, we were asked to emphasize, and we emphasized, that H2020 is not an aid program. It is a research program which promotes including international collaboration. So they understood that maybe they're not in a position to sort of get one way, how should I say, a direct cash input in maintaining these contacts. So in that sense, most of these countries they decided to sort of have their own point of contact funded by the government or funded by various research institutes as their own sort of Horizon 2020 contact for their own countries. I suppose that is another approach that these countries, not only these countries, any country can do, because they need to identify the benefit that this scheme actually brings into their countries, bearing in mind that this is not an aid program. So it is actually, for example, in Sri Lanka, the National Science Foundation is more or less the NCP for H22 program, but they're not receiving any funding from the European Commission. They have allocated money, and they value the opportunity, and they work along those lines. And so far, I think it is working. We receive enormous number of requests to be part of proposals that we even can't cope with, and I gather it is the same for most of the other European partners. So that means they understand the system. And it also sort of emphasizes that they have identified that there are plenty of opportunities, maybe not very specifically identified as INCO-net actions, but there are a lot of opportunities hidden within the overall H2020 program where international partners can take part. Some partners are very specific. You know, can we identify some partners to take part in this particular call, DRS21, something like that. So that means they have read the call, they have identified the opportunities, so they are looking for European partners. So these are the sort of some of the initial views that I would like to share with our experiences. Of course, we have been working with that part of the world for about 15, 20 years now. So, but with H2020, this is the kind of immediate feedback that I'd like to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dilanthi. If there is one question or comment, because we're running out of time, if there is any comment or quick question or something? If not the case, so thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you. We have the last intervention for the PP Way. Our colleague from Romania, she will give us a brief, a very, very short about research infrastructure in Romania that is welcoming researchers from everywhere.
I would like to inform you about, but I haven't a presentation yet here. Okay. About the possibility to work starting with next year in the ELI, extreme light infrastructure. So it's a large-scale European infrastructure located in Romania. So it will be a presentation uploaded in the website, and there you will find two possibilities: to sign the memorandum of understanding for the academia and another for industry. So you are welcome to access the web page that you will find in the presentation, and from all over the world to come to this infrastructure that is a laser, a very powerful laser, and you are welcome in Romania. So thank you.
Thank you. It was really quick and up to the point. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So PPWay is over. I can give the floor to Diasina, that is going to chair the next session. And thank you for participating and for being on time, more or less.
More or less. 30 minutes
you can use as much as you want.
We are in the Mediterranean countries. So Kalimera is too late for Kalimera, so I have to say Kalia Poema in Greece. Good morning. My name is Diasina Di Maggio, and I already introduced myself, probably. I am the director of APRE, the Agency for the Promotion of European Research Program. As Camila, she's very kind, told you, we are the host organization of all the national contact points in Horizon 2020. We started our activities 25 years ago. So, as you can understand, that we have deeply knowledge about European research program and now innovation. So first of all, I am delighted to be here in Athens and in occasion of the 5th INCO program. As you know, I am not INCO NCP. My colleague, Monique Bossi, she is INCO NCP, but unfortunately, she had a small accident in Rome, so it's now at home, and it's not possible for her to join us. I would like to thank Praxi and Forth, Paminondas, and all the colleagues, George, all the team in Athens for the extraordinary organization of the meeting, in particular for the Sunday evening dinner. So a tremendous event, and for also the presentation of all the speakers of the first day. I think that probably a lot of you was the first time that we received some provocative information and presentation, like the Israel colleague, that was very nice, because we force us to think something different. We talk about everywhere all the same things, but thanks to you and Mr. Glenn for the Millennium Project, we were forced to think, something for the future, something different. I want also congratulate with our local audience for the European Greek presidency. In fact, during this presidency, a lot of successful events were organized, and also next week the Greek president has two important events. On the 1st of July, Italy will take the EU presidency, and I hope that both countries, Greece and Italy, can contribute together to enhance some important social issues in Europe, such as immigration in the Mediterranean area, and not only. I would like to thank all the speakers. Where is my speakers? Ichi, Anne, please. Join me. Yes, please. Yes. All the speakers who accepted our invitation. And before they are going to have their presentation, I would like to ask them their opinion again about international cooperation in research and innovation, and in particular, if this cooperation with Europe did have an impact in their countries, and to what extent. Maybe they can also give us some suggestions on how to improve it. Our workshop, the title of our workshop session is Experiences and Cooperation Opportunities. This is the reason because I ask you more questions. What about this title? Is reciprocity. This reciprocity session has been promoted upon the initiative of the JUPIST project, and of course through its coordinator Ichi. In the new BILAT project with Japan, specific actions are implemented to promote Japanese programs to be open to EU researchers. This activity was, in the past, the main objective for Access for Europe scheme, as you remember, or most of you remember. Today, reciprocity session is organized in 3 different groups or parts. One related to the industrialized countries, one related to the BRIC plus Mexico countries, and one related to emerging economies and ENP. Unfortunately, due to the short time, now we have 30 minutes delay, we have only 1 speaker for each part. By the way, I would like to remark that at the end of all the presentation, there will be a short question and answer session where possible question may be asked to the speakers and as well of other representatives of the participating countries. The Wikipedia definition of reciprocities is a mutual or cooperative interchange of favors or privileges, especially the exchange of rights of trade between nations. Is this also true for research and innovation? This is another question for our 3 speakers and also for you, for the audience. Before giving the floor to the first speaker, I would like to ask you to fill in and return the assessment forms that have been distributed is in the desk in front of this in the registration desk. Ichi Toshi Ashu, for me is Ichi, is our first speaker, representative of the industrialized countries like United States, Canada, Japan. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Ichi is the responsible for EU-Japan cooperation in Science, Technology, and Innovation Institute. Please.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, oops, it happened. We see, yes. Good. Desina, thank you very much for the introduction. So, on behalf of 3 countries, Canada, USA, and Japan, I'm presenting 3 presentations. And of course, I'm not specialist of each national projects. I need help from Martina for Canada, Olaf from USA, and of course, I should be able to speak about Japan. Okay, so I start from Canada. Here we start with the background information, how Canada is spending in science and technologies in general. Actually, a bit more than half goes to so-called intramural activities, followed by higher education and business-related activities. And I'm not going to read everything, but do you want to highlight some of these, or maybe intramural? These are more the cross-sectoral activities yes. And here is the organization diagram for Canadian science and technology. And, oops, just a moment. Yes, can I, just a moment. No, sorry. I'm very sorry. Can I just do one thing?
I can.
Yes.
It's impossible for me to help you.
Yeah, for that I'm doing this. Yes. Okay, something is wrong. Okay, but anyway, so there are 4 departments involved in this science and technology related activities. The Department for Natural Resources Canada, Health Canada, Industry Canada, and Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development. And they each have programs in charge. Okay. And the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Development, they have an innovation strategy which says that through the greater integration with the trade commissioner services, they want to leverage the international science, technology, and innovation linkages, and to enhance the private sector, the innovation in the private sector through proactive partnership buildings. And more concretely, they have 4 lines of actions. First of all, through the science and technology agreements, they want to mobilize this strategy, and through the innovation partnerships or network building, they are trying to invest on that, and they are trying to influence on the international regulations, which is very important to take the leadership in standardizations and many business or industry-related fields. And of course, they are as a Department of Foreign Affairs, they are promoting Canada as a partner for international cooperation. And the hope, or the objectives, is to promote Canadian businesses in a global environment. Like many other countries, Canada has tax alleviation schemes, and which is extensively used. And I think also, like other countries, this is one of the biggest actually support to the international cooperation or R&D, which is not really visible in terms of the money, because it's not given as a form of funds. And so, yes, okay, I think this is quite clear. If you want to add, sorry. And one of the specific areas we'd like to highlight here is aerospace and defense-related initiatives. And this is managed by Industry Canada, and this is to encourage strategic research and development in the area of aerospace and defense-related areas. And to foster collaboration between research organizations, universities, and private sector, they are providing this opportunity for projects. Okay. Then there is a Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council. This is an agency primarily supports the students or in the higher education stages, and also to promote and support the researchers' exchange, I think. And this is primarily for Canadians, but if the qualified foreign candidates are also eligible to apply. And as you can see, there is a focus on innovation, but also the mobility scheme and the basic research. There are many sub-programs under this council, I think. Canada has networks of so-called centers of excellences, NCE, and currently there are 14 networks, and of which the one on marine and Arctic ones, MEOPAR and Arctic Net, are of special interest for Europeans, apparently. So there is a strong cooperation between Europe and Canada in those areas. And talking about Arctic regions, there is a Canadian High Arctic Research Station. Canada is one of few countries which have direct access to the polar regions. And there will be an opening, this station that will be opened in 2017 with indicated budget of 25 million Canadian euros. Of course, it will be an international station. And some research themes are already identified, like alternative renewable energy, underwater observing systems, and so on. Okay, and in addition to that, there are 17 centers of excellence for commercialization and research. The idea is to bridge between the basic research and commercialization, or the real business, real work. Once again, okay, no, not once again, no, sorry. Yeah, those are the logos from those centers. Sorry, I'm very superficial here, but hopefully this was at least an overview for Canada. If you want to add something.
Not now.
Oh, sorry.
Now, at the end of the session.
Okay,
please.
sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Then I go to USA. Okay, so this is from BILAT USA 2.0. So okay, yes. So to begin with, I'd like to comment that one of the partners for BILAT USA 2.0, the National Council of University Research Administrators, NCURA, is currently conducting an extensive survey on the programs available for European participations, and the results will be most likely available in June 2014 on their website. And as many of us know, the National Institute of Health, they have generally open programs which allows access to the US national programs from abroad. And in addition to that, there are some other programs that Europeans or any other nationals can participate, but generally those are more restrictive. So here come some selected examples. First of all, we talk about National Institute of Health. In general, NIH can fund directly to foreign participants. And although some of them, some specific actions are reserved for US citizens. And of course, when you want to apply for NIH grants, just like any other grants, eligibility must be checked in advance. Then there are certain programs, there are certain initiatives that may provide funding to European partners, like the one listed in blue here. And in addition to that, there are certain partnerships already identified. It's in the bottom, like Belgium, Ireland for National Cancer Institute, France for National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, and the Netherlands, Spain for National Institute on Drug Abuse. So there are schemes that may allow European participations, and in addition to that, there are already identified bilateral schemes. And well, under NIH, there is a center called the Fogarty International Research Collaboration. Fogarty International Center. And they have schemes like Fogarty International Research Collaboration Award or International Research in Infection Diseases, including AIDS. Those might be of European interest. Okay. Yes, I think there are some countries already identified. For example, for the international research in infectious diseases, including AIDS. I think there are countries like Bulgaria, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania identified. Is that the case? Yes, okay. So once again, for more details, of course, you need to consult the website or any other relevant documents for eligibility and conditions for participation. And of course, in addition to NIH is not the only funding organizations. And there are organizations like NSF, Department of Energy, with somewhat more restricted or limited availability of funds. Okay. And that was the end of presentation for USA.
So now it's your country.
Yes, finally.
More easy for you, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Ichi, because I can understand that it's difficult to present something that it's not so yes.
Okay. So then here comes the Science, Technology, Innovation Programs of Japan. Well, I just to briefly summarize the size of our science, technology, and innovation. As of 2010, we spent 3.26% of GDP into R&D, which is one of the highest countries in the world. Although we saw examples like South Korea, Israel spending more than 4% now, which is really impressive. Our target is actually 4%, 3% from industry and 1% from public sector. Our budget that was approved recently is approximately 26 billion euro for only governmental part. And we are now under the reform of our science and technology innovation programs. This budget was for the first time determined by our STI budget committee. We have 8 ministries with competitive funds and with the cabinet office taking more and more coordinating role. This is one of the latest development. And in Japan, we have approximately 750 universities, of which 86 national, 9 so-called world premier institutes. Those are usually located at universities or in some cases national research institutes to be really world-class, plus 30 national research organizations. This is on the right-hand side, I showed the distribution of budget per ministry. Without explaining the abbreviation, it's a bit difficult, but the biggest chunk is from the Ministry of Education, Sport, Culture, Science and Technology. It's an interesting combination. And then the second one is from Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, mainly in charge of innovation part. And we have 5 priorities, like clean and economic energy systems, health, and next generation infrastructures, local area revitalization or clusters or regional development, and last but least, of course, the recovery from the disaster that struck our country 3 years ago is one of the biggest challenges we are facing. And I'm observing that more and more policy dialogues are arranged between the EU and Japan. For example, the space policy dialogue for the first time is planned this autumn in Japan. Talking about programs open to European participations, Euraccess Links Japan has published a comprehensive funding guide booklet, both with European funding but also Japanese funding. This booklet will be updated shortly, but still the older version is very useful. And our project, Shupi's project, is currently working on the revision of those programs, but not only that, also the research infrastructures like accelerators, high-performance computers available for foreign researchers. So we are going to publish a result with a cost-benefit analysis. Then here I listed 2 of the major funding agencies under MEXT, Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. They are actually managing the biggest amount of STI-related budget in Japan, and the Japan Science and Technology Agency. So they have like individual fellowship schemes or individual researcher schemes, and group-to-group schemes like core-to-core open partnerships. For those, we are going to have a training course this afternoon from 2 p.m. on the room on the ground floor, in the room on the ground floor. So if you are interested in, please join us. I think the seats are already quite limited, but you are still welcome to check at the registration desk. And we also have an interesting scheme offered by METI and Japan External Trade Organization. This is actually to support foreign companies trying to establish high added value centers in Japan, most likely R&D centers or more than that. And I'm not going to ask you to read, but this started in 2010, and the last call was closed yesterday. And this is a result until last year, and 23 companies were awarded, and of which 12 companies were actually European. And it is very interesting to see that last year, even companies like Siemens, BASF, those giants got money from the Japanese government to establish an R&D centers in Japan. So this can be of interest for global companies, global foreign companies, including Europeans. And I also would like to highlight a scheme called Technology Research Associations. This is a long-standing scheme. There was a change in the basic law, now called Act on Research and Development Partnership. And this is more innovation-oriented associations. And there is now possibility to convert this association into a real company if the research and innovation goes well. And in principle, this allows the participation of foreign companies, in principle. Unfortunately, I know that this has been open to foreign participation since already 30, 40 years. And there were examples like Intel participating in some of them, for example. But if you look for information, there is almost no information available in Japanese, in English, sorry. So all the information is in Japanese, and if you don't have Japanese connection, it's a bit difficult to enter. This is a shame, and we are talking to the Japanese government to at least supply more information available for foreign companies. And I just want to highlight that Japan is the country with the biggest number of coordinated calls with the EU. We had the one on superconductivity, photovoltaics, aeronautics, substitution of rare earth, aeronautics again, and 2 coordinated calls on ICT. The last one was actually under Horizon 2020. And we also had joint calls through Eranet Japan, namely Consort Japan. But as we observed yesterday, the coordinated calls are very heavy. The Commission needs to negotiate with the Japanese counterpart on which theme, with which kind of budget, when, and how to evaluate. So, of course, we need to think if those coordinated calls cannot be applied to all the themes, and we should more promote the general opening of Horizon 2020. I also prepared the PPWay thing, and I just wanted to ask some questions. Now we need to build the partnerships in the time of open innovation or open access to the data and publications. And here, often the question is how to find the right partner, or if people like us should help with identifying the themes. I actually don't think so. Also, how to engage the industry, especially SMEs. But I'm not going into details. I'm open to all the discussions. And that was the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ichi. Don't forget my stupid questions, but it's very important for us to know your feeling about all the long experience that you have in the collaboration with you, and what about this kind of reciprocity? It means that what is your idea about?
I can argue forever on that. Of course, reciprocity, which is clearly stated in the EU-Japan Science and Technology Cooperation Agreement, is important. But at the same time, I never seen a concrete and understandable definition of reciprocity. I don't think Commission has really defined that, what reciprocity really means, what they expect. Because, Japan is a country. So if we talk about Germany, Japan, or the Netherlands, Japan cooperation, then there isn't clear reciprocity. EU is already a multinational organization. And if we talk about the reciprocity between the EU and single country, Japan, it's very difficult to realize. For example, we talk about the mutual access to the programs. Of course, Horizon 2020 is open to the entire world, and that is great, and that's why I'm promoting the European value of collaborative research. But at the same time, the framework program is not flexible. It's already negotiated and agreed by the member states. So if, for example, Japan comes up with a scheme saying that, okay, now Europeans can participate, but come up with your own matching funds. Can Europe do that? Probably national funding organizations can do that, but the EU, most likely not. So I always need to argue, and of course, I hope that we will have more general participation from Japan into Horizon 2020. But the reciprocity, I think we need to be careful and needs to be more discussed or more, better defined, I would say.
I don't know if I am in the correct position to talk about NIH example, because also in FP7, when NIH decided to have an agreement with the European Commission, the United States researchers in only one sector, health, they could apply with the European researchers, and of course the European researcher can submit, and can, because it's still alive, submit proposal in a NIH funding scheme. So in this case, there are very simple reciprocity, because it's
right.
in both versus. I don't know if in other countries we can say the same good examples. I don't know, example.
Yeah, there's no such kind of general opening among Japanese programs. And it was, I think, possible because of such a huge, R&D power, USA and the EU. And the NIH has this general opening. They didn't do that just for the EU. They just did open their program. So as far as I know, there's no opening. I don't know if JST is in here. He might be able to comment. Well, he's coming in the afternoon. But my feeling is that Japanese funding organizations are more interested in ERANET kind of schemes, like multinational funding schemes. And we are now observing in many innovation-oriented initiatives. We even introduced something like DARPA, US DARPA kind of funding in Japan. We are waiting for the establishment of Japanese NIH. So I don't know if it will be open to the entire world, but let's see what will come out.
Thank you, Ichi. And now the floor is to Anne Collin, Deputy Director Bureau for Cooperation with Europe, with Mexico and Europe in Science, Technology and Innovation. So she is delegated for the BRIC countries and Mexico, of course, India, China, Russia, and Brazil.
Okay. Thank you, Yasina. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you for inviting me to present and participate in this panel. Well, I just wanted to present you BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and first the word was BRIC, and then they added BRICS, South Africa. However, well, we will have then the next presentation about South Africa. But where's Mexico, right, in this? So I wanted to present MINT, Also, as you know, there's another word already, Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Turkey. So, well, just mean to be. Okay, so we'll start with the presentation of China, which Grace is over here. I would like her to just raise her hand. If you have questions later on, please go ahead. So we'll have a quick overview of Chinese research and innovation programs. We'll have the background, the agenda. For the GDP, it's 9.4 trillion USD. They're investing, they have more than 7% per year in the industry and services sector, which has been growing in the last, this is the data from 2013. It ranks 35 out of 142 countries in the Global Innovation Index. And the strengths of innovation are those squares you can see: reading, assessment, mathematics and science, firms offering creative goods, and finance by business. China gross domestic expenditure has more than doubled from 2005 to 2010, and it's reaching 177% of China's GDP. What are the reasons for collaborating with China? I think, there has been lot of discussion about this, no? The economic importance of China, the easier technology acquisition, the Chinese investment in science and education, there's talent pool, research opportunities, competitors, jointly tackled shared problems. About the Chinese funding programs, we have at the national level, it's divided in three. They have the national programs, the regional programs, and programs with Hong Kong. So at the national levels, we have the Ministry of Science and Technology, MOST, National Natural Science Foundation of China, Chinese Academy of Science, and Chinese Scholarship Council. For the MOST program, they have these three. There's a website also if you want to go through. Some of the information, of course, is in Chinese. Not everything is in English, but they will have more information. Grace has more information if you're interested in a specific program. So the National Basic Research Programs has 973 different programs. The National High-Tech Research and Development Program has 863 programs, so I guess we can participate in any of those, Grace? Okay. No, it's not then. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. So we have the International ST Cooperation Program and European Chinese SMEs Energy Conservation and Emission Reduction Research Collaboration Fund. For the NSFC, we have International Region Cooperation and Exchange Programs. These are joint research programs, the Research Fund for International Young Scientists, the International Region Organization Joint Research Program, and China International Region Conference Program. For CAS, we have fellowships and cooperative programs, International Cooperation Award for Young Scientists, Award for International Scientific Cooperation of CAS. We have also Chinese government scholarship with the European program, Chinese government scholarship bilateral programs, and the Chinese government with Chinese university program. So in regional, there are several regions, agencies that provide science and technology research funding for researchers. Among the major funding agencies, you have Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangdong. And the main programs open to European researchers include the following, which is, this is very important, because there we have European can apply. We have also, for Hong Kong, we have the Innovation and Technology Commission, and they're divided in 6 areas. You can, there's some automotive, logistics, change management, innovation and technology support programs, etc. Also, you have, for Hong Kong, the Research Grants Council. You have collaborative research funds, general research funds, and joint research schemes. Have the Environment and Conservation Fund. You have Environment, Education, and Community Action Projects. Food and Health Bureau, which you have a Medical Research Fund, and the Healthcare. So conclusions. Well, there are differences in research culture. However, open competition based on peer review in Europe versus hierarchical top-down approach in China. What is very important to stress is the common priorities for China, supporting complementary strengths in energy, climate change, food security, urbanization, aviation, ICT. Access to national level funding depends critically on local partners. Many Chinese research programs tend not to cover staff costs, except for some programs from Hong Kong. Track record of collaboration is important, and engaged leadership, governing body, and follow-up capacity can be crucial, build reliable networks. So the contacts up there, there's Grace's email, and you have all these offices in different parts of the world, so it will be a good contact point. So moving to Brazil. Also, Paulo here, if you have any questions, no, you can contact him for further information. So Brazil-Europe Research Cooperation, the National Science, Technology, and Innovation System, the main institutions, as you can see. Paulo is part of the CNPq, no? In the middle, right? You have the presidency, the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, and you have all these agencies who contribute to science and technology. You have there are state entities and foundation for research support, and you have National Fund for Scientific and Technological Development, that it doesn't goes directly with the presidency. So information on the Brazilian funding opportunities. The Brazilian government finances the implementation of projects, programs, and research innovation networks. It also supports scientific events, publication, academic journals, and the participation of students and researchers, mostly as all our councils, no, in agencies also. We have the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, which was created in 1985. It's responsible for the definition of Brazilian STI policies and priorities. Two of the main Brazilian funding agencies, it's FINEP and CNPq. As I mentioned, Paulo, he works there and represents this institution. You have 21 research unities, and you have the Center for Strategic Studies and Management in Science, the National Nuclear Energy Commission, and Brazilian Space Agency. The CNPq, no, it was established in 1951 before the ministry. Its main funding schemes, it has scholarships, grants for research and development, grants for organization of events, leading programs, Science Without Borders, National Institutes of Science and Technology. There's calls for proposal for research and innovation projects. These calls are for research projects and to envisage significant contributions to the scientific and technological development of the country in all areas of knowledge. You have also what I mentioned, Science Without Borders, no? So this is implemented directly by CNPq and CAPES, which it's for Brazilian science, technology, and innovation, competitiveness through the expansion of international mobility and capacity building. You have in Science Without Borders, no, this kind of sandwich undergraduate abroad, sandwich PhD abroad, which refers that you will study and then you go abroad for a period of time, 6 months or even a year, and then you have to go back to Brazil. This amount, the total, 101,000, it's euros, right, Paulo? So you have also the bilateral calls for joint research innovation projects, which is researchers from both countries are invited to submit a research proposal, will be supported by a CNPq Brazilian team and the foreign partner foreign team. And you have also, well, has been working lately with funded joint research projects, no? Maybe you can see some of your institutions there. With the European Commission, well, this is the coordinated calls, no, they have. There you have, since 2009, 3 calls for proposals were launched. You have the proposals on advanced biofuels, ICTs, and the second proposal as well. This is what has been matching funding, no? From the last column, you can see the resources Brazil has invested in the projects I just mentioned. So the projects in FP7 that Brazil had is Eulanest, Eularinet, Aporta, and Alcoenet, and Vice Eranet, LAC. Those are the projects that still, last ones, they're still participating. Okay. So as mentioned, if you have any questions, you can address them to Paulo.
So, Mexico?
Mexico. Okay, so, well, as I mentioned, I work for the National Council for Science and Technology, CONACYT, which is the federal government for science and technology. We have, in CONACYT, we developed this special program for science and technology and innovation. We work very closely with the president, 2014, 2018. We just published this special program, and we defined there the areas that we're looking for collaboration in these 4 years. And there is what we want to achieve, of course, is the social impact. So this is the CONACYT's operational frame. We have the legal frame, no? As I mentioned, the Special Program for Science and Technology, among other laws. And we have basically at CONACYT 3 main pillars, which are programs for human capital formation. We have science, and we have the technological development. You can see the sub-programs. And we have, for instruments, we have several funds. We have institutional funds, sectorial funds. We have CONACYT's research and technological centers, of course, international cooperation, and scientific and technological dissemination. We have 26 research centers. These are public research centers within the country. They're nationwide. And we have, in these all centers, the 3 pillars I mentioned before. We have an ST agreement with European Mexico. No, next year we will have to renew it. No, we're working towards it. It will be the 3rd time it will be renewed. And first, we have the Office of Mexico-European Cooperation in Science and Technology. It was established in 2006. It started with applying to a call, no, in FP6. The office objectives are support the implementation of the agreement on STI cooperation, coordinate and promote cooperation with the European Union, provide information to the scientific community to encourage their participation, contribute to the visibility of research, development, and innovation of Mexican institutions. We coordinate also with other initiatives in Latin America, and we want to play a key role in strengthening bi-regional dialogue. As you have heard, Mexico is no longer receiving funding from the European Commission. So now we see as a key still, we want to continue working with the European Commission. We're putting into key elements, no, to achieve and to have more participation. And also we have the project European Union-Mexico Bilateral Innovation Initiative, EUMEX-Innova, which started last September, and it has a duration of 36 months. Even some of my partners, colleagues are here, the Asina from APRE, Iris from FEI, and we have Coparmex also from Mexico, Nancy. And the objectives of the project, when it was written, it was in FP7 still, but however, we envision it for Horizon 2020. And the objectives of the project are to foster the formation of public-private partnerships. That's why it is so important to have Coparmex, which is, they have a very big network of 60,000 companies in Mexico. And we want to develop projects with them. That's why we brought them aboard. We propose joint mechanisms and promote the use of the European and Mexican instruments. We wanted to consolidate the STI collaboration work of the European and Mexican communities because we didn't know when we wrote the proposal what was going to happen. These are the partner institutions. I mentioned some of them. They're here. And these are the working packages. It's divided in basically in 5, but the main core of the project is bridging the gap between public and private research actors. These are the key areas, the European and Mexican convene and the Joint Steering Committee that took place last November. And we were going to have our next steering committee this October. And we have specific actions for each of these areas. So, because we didn't know how are we going to participate in Horizon 2020, then we heard the news that we're not going to receive funding. We created this special fund, which will, this goes with public funds, Mexican public funds, and we launched the call CONACYT Horizon 2020. The idea of the call is to have this funding until the end of the framework program, and the objective of the call is to promote and have participation of Mexican entities in the program H 2020. And they will receive complementary support from CONACYT. We're only financing up to 85% in the case of public entities, institutions of higher education, technological and research centers, and private higher education institutions as well, and up to 70% for private entities. And the complementary amount must be provided by the Mexican entity. The total amount approved will be based on following criteria, recommendations of the evaluation committee, and availability of resources, of course. There's more information. If you want, I can also put a link. If you want, I can talk to Nondas, no? But the process to obtain CONACYT support is first participation as a partner institution in any of the calls of the framework of the program. They have to register a pre-proposal, the Mexican entity, to be part of an European consortium, no? Then we're just going to, we have to do an internal evaluation as well in Mexico because it's public funding. So we're just evaluating the ones who, the projects that will be approved by the project, by the European Commission. They will have to inform the Mexican entity that this has been approved, and then we'll have CONACYT's evaluation, and then they will receive the CONACYT's financial support. Here I just want to mention that we're not evaluating, again, the technical details of the project because that has been already evaluated. What we're evaluating is that the funding that they're asking related to the Mexican participation, it's accordingly to the activities that they're going to develop into the consortia, and the costs are eligible. Of course, this, that's another important thing to mention, that this is a pilot call, what we launched. What we're looking at is to see the first reaction of the scientific community in Mexico and also international, and we want to keep, adjusting it so it will be a really good mechanism at the end of it. So we're opening and doing these adjustments frequently, well, every 6 months it's planned. So, well, the benefits of international cooperation, just to address your question, Yasina. Well, we think basically it's very important for us to contribute to the social and economic development of the society as a whole. And about reciprocity, well, many people ask me, do you think it's a good thing that now the European Commission is not giving you funds? I think now we're talking about reciprocity in the sense that we also can decide from this, in Mexico, what we want to do and where we want to invest our funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. And And thank you because, as you say, for the China and also Ichi for Japan, I think that the language is still an obstacle for the reciprocity. So this is something that... and now the last speaker. Please, the floor is yours. Aldo Streber, Executive Director of a National Research Foundation, and as delegate here of Emerging Economies Countries and ENP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's a pleasure to engage with you again. There's 4 countries that we will look at during this session. So it is Argentina, Ukraine, Egypt, and South Africa. We will start with the Argentina presentation, but may I first ask whose representatives from those institutions or the country that's present here? Argentina first. Yes, Madam. Thank you very much. So please add value or indicate if something perhaps is not clear. So Argentina was the first Latin American country to sign a cooperative agreement with the EU, and that was renewed in 2011. So obviously the indication of strengthening of those engagements are apparent. They have a large number of bilateral agreements with both member states and associated countries, and co-financed a liaison office since 2005 with a number of other programs, for the majority focusing on, at that time, FP6 and continuing to FP7. Important to note is that there's matching liaison and investment activities with other countries like Mexico, Brazil, Chile, and so on, and that there's collaborative programs in support of a general approach for EU-funded engagements. There's a number of programs that indicate reciprocity and the internationalization of Argentina's research platform. So co-financing of a number of projects, for instance, training and exchange of human resources from Argentinian and European member states and associated countries within the normal bilateral and multilateral engagement frameworks, travel grants for engagements, and organizations that facilitates these engagements. Very importantly, the Scientific and Technological Research Project funds, which assists and support engagement with foreign entities, the contribution to SMEs and associated other funds for collaboration, and of course the normal large mix of bi- and multilateral programs, in this case focusing on infrastructure, for instance, with a large number of European countries. They have associate membership to infrastructure components like the European Molecular Biotechnology Laboratory. They have implementing agreements between the ERC and the Argentinian Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, which is currently in negotiation. I might just add, it's not on this slide, that this is the 4th country, and there are only 4 so far that is in negotiation with the ERC for these types of engagements. So one is South Korea, that was concluded last year. One is the NSF in the US, which was the first. I think it's operational for the past 2 years now. South Africa is just about to conclude its agreement, and I'm very happy to see, and I've known this for the past few months, that Argentina is in negotiation with their agreement. Very importantly, Business Technology Cooperation Call that they've put out in collaboration with others, like in Spain, for SME focus and Spanish enterprises. For Argentina, that is short and sweet. One can certainly see a huge engagement in growth in terms of their collaborative opportunities. Very importantly is the funds that's made available at various levels through the normal multilateral initiatives, private sector, and infrastructure adjustment. May we move on then to Ukraine? Thank you. This is quite a short presentation also. From my understanding, in 1991, one of the first foresight exercises took place in terms of the renewal of science and technology in the Ukraine, and situation analysis on the state of the policy in the sphere of science and technology and science activities were put together. That was followed up with a structured implementation plan a few years later that focused on three broad investment areas, namely energy resources, agro-food complex and processing, I suppose, and materials and sustenances. Today, a large number of programs, in excess of 60, that focuses on the broad innovation value chain investment for the country. There's a number of large programs that's open to foreign participants. So one is the Antarctica program, which runs for a decade, 2011 to 2020, that's implemented and owned by the Ukrainian State Agency for Science, Innovation and Information. The second one focuses on novel drug discovery and pharmaceuticals, also in veterinary medicine, up to 2015. Number of departmental programs carried out within national academies, which is open to international cooperation. And I'm pleased that the national academies is mentioned here, because in the conclusion for the 4 countries, this is one of the emerging components that one sees, especially with the developing countries, is the important role that the national academies play in that endeavor to internationalize. And of course, the specific support that the academies provide in bilateral cooperation and a large number of joint projects, as we can see. This, for me, was an interesting slide summarizing the number of joint projects with a number of prominent countries that Ukraine works with. You can see almost a quarter is with Poland. France is the next one, about 17%, and Hungary at 11%, and then the rest decreasing in terms of number. But this certainly shows, especially from an ENP perspective, the very important investment horizon and regional investment strategies that Ukraine has taken up. May we have Egypt? Almost sounds like the Olympics with the next country that has to come up, right? This is a program that, to my understanding, and please advise, culminates and brings together a number of large activities in Egypt for coordination and networking. It's called Shaping Egypt's Association to the European Research Area and Cooperation Action Plus. As you can see, it is multidimensional and consists of a number of programs to support, from the top short mobility grants. Anti-clockwise, you'll see accessing EU-Egypt science, technology, and innovation cooperation, supporting other programs, synergizing multilateral programs, and specifically regional actions. So, of course, Egypt is a very important role player, both to the south, so to speak, from the African perspective, and certainly to their north from the Mediterranean perspective. And that straddling of the two environments brings a very interesting regionality towards their investment component. On the right, you'll see a promotion program for Egypt's research programs to the EU. So there's the Science, Technology, and Innovation Portal of Egypt, a catalog of research organizations, which is important in terms of harnessing the detail of that for expansion, and an e-newsletter, for instance, and so on. This is very short. I was wondering if my Egyptian colleagues would like to add maybe one comment just to highlight this component, or has it been fairly portrayed? No, it's not a question. It's an ad for the presentation.
Because we had also a presentation yesterday, but please.
Are you good with this presentation, Madam?
Well, the slide, through this slide, I wanted to show the concept of reciprocity between Egypt and the EU. Similar to the opening of the Horizon 2020 and the previous FP7 to all the researchers, including the Egyptians, in Egypt, we also have programs that is open for the participation of the Europeans and the opportunities to get funded. This is through the bilateral agreements with the EU member states like France, Germany, Italy and Spain. And also we have the RDI program, where this program is funded by the EU, affiliated at the Ministry of Scientific Research. The current phase of the program is funded with 20 million euros. 11 million euros and a half was open for grants for the Egyptians as well as the EMP countries as well. Actually, we are now in the process of granting. That's why I could not have some statistics about how many non-Egyptians or Europeans participated in the grants, but it will be soon published on the portal and the RDI website. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is also an indication of other supporting programs that adds value in terms of Egypt's engagement with the rest of the world. So specifically in terms of bilateral agreements, novel funding mechanisms, I think that's what my colleague has referred to now, seed funding, support, mobility, for instance, RDI programs. And very importantly, and one can see this also as a cross-cutter to this cluster of examples of countries, is ERA-NETs and the value that that adds. Of course, this is open to many other countries, but for these examples, this stays an important part. For the last presentation on South Africa, no, there is. Thank you very much. Not too much detail, colleagues, but this also links to our discussion of this morning. Where would we like to be in terms of our EU presentation? So the them and the other, right? This is an EU program, and it's focused on EU countries. For associated members, third countries, etc., all those components of groupings that different countries fall in. It is very important for a country to decide how it wants to participate and why. For South Africa, and I acknowledge my colleague from the Department of Science and Technology, who's actually the custodian of South Africa's engagement with the previous framework programs, Horizon 2020, and with all the other associated institutions participating, is that the alignment with national priorities is quite important. Creating an enabling framework to be able to participate. And very importantly, that third last one, is that the framework programs are not appropriate in all instances. I picked up to some extent that many here think or are under the impression that this is the only direction for a country to participate and to get funding from. Of course, it is very large. Of course, there's many historical linkages with the EU that necessitates and justifies engagement. But it is one of many research programs in the world to participate in. South Africa has taken a specific stance to see where we can fit our programs, importantly how to align, but perhaps the most critical is to provide a support mechanism to enable that participation. If the support mechanism is not there, it is a developing process. FE programs are 40, 50 years old. There's a developmental state for many countries, including my own, to enable participation and to make it successful. That perhaps is the first point. The second one is a very enabling program that has been in existence through various iterations for a while. South Africa has started to participate in framework programs around the fourth one or so as we came out of isolation, and with increasing success up to framework program 7. So the SASTAP program is the European South African Science and Technology Advancement Program. First 2 phases is SASTAP, and now as we are is SASTAP Plus, and that will engage for the next 3 years. It has started at the end of last year. And this, that is driven by the Department of Science and Technology in collaboration with a number of other institutions, is a very important mechanism to enable this broad-based participation. For the current structure, there's various members that's part of this program. Our Academy of Science, for instance, ASAF, is a prominent role player. You'll see Forth and Praxi there, Kino also from Greece, etc., etc. Sarima there is the equivalent of Encura that you heard from the US presentation, for instance. So it's the Southern African Research and Innovation Management Association. The take home from this is that there's one program that can facilitate support and information provision for EU participation. The strength of this partnership is that each institution brings their own insight and network, and it works together then to provide clarity on approach. There's a number of support instruments in South Africa to make available EU information and to facilitate. But the word is facilitate. At the end, it is the researcher working at a research institution that applies for funding. It is not the government, it is not the institution in itself, it is the researcher. Framework programs and all other programs are based on research. And that is important from our perspective, perhaps also from the other discussions this morning, is that there can be facilitation and support as far as possible. But at the end, the horse needs to come to the water, and the horse must drink the water by itself, right? So awareness raising, seed funding provision, coordinative meetings to provide the information, training events, etc., are very important activities of this program. There's a number of other EU engagements, of course, also, whose networks the country use to further promote specific applications under framework programs. So again, to confirm the previous point, it is not just Horizon 2020 or framework programs. It is very important for us to play a role and to engage with other networks to support further participation. The structure of NCPs came from a very interesting discussion this morning. From Framework 6, there was a formal structure of national contact points in the country. The current structure is as you see here. So there's 19 national contact points. It is people who do a different, that has a core work, like I'm the national contact point for ERC. I have a full-time employment. I engage with this in my spare time, and because of the contribution, from my point of view, that one makes to the science system. One is not remunerated, but there is funding that is provided from the Department of Science and Technology for 3 years to engage. So, for instance, you can attend a minimum number of meetings. You can coordinate from those funds, bringing together experts to speak about the process. You can have a small proposal writing workshop, etc., etc. But it is managed through a very strict contract between my institution, as an example, and the Department of Science and Technology. It is based on a strategic plan provided beforehand and monitored each year for this 3-year engagement to ensure maximum engagement and to ensure optimal outputs. I'm giving you this list of South Africa's formal science and technology buy and multilaterals with overseas and with Africa to indicate the point that this network is used extensively, of course, to promote further engagement and enhancement of partnerships. So it does not, as we've seen with previous countries, happen in isolation. Building long-term sustainable partnerships is key to engaging with successful Horizon FP programs. So my unit at the National Research Foundation portfolio manages these agreements of South Africa with the rest of the world. And that advantage in our national system of innovation contributes to further engagement. We spoke yesterday about Africa's participation and success in previous FP programs. This is the 7th framework outcomes at the end. South Africa is pleased to be very successful, but it's also very important to see the rise from 5 to 6 to 7 of other African partners. Invariably, the success of one country is based on co-applications of another country. That is an important component also with the previous two slides that showed Africa and the list of agreements with the rest of the world, because that interconnectivity or reciprocity, which I'll comment on at the end, is important to build this. One has always seen it's very rare that your first application is successful. So it is a track record of excellence to be built and strategic partnerships to be forged that makes the process successful at the end. In summary, we had a relatively high number of participants under the previous program. Around 50 million euro were leveraged in connection with the investments that were made. Prominent universities and research science councils were engaged. The success rate is favorable. So South Africa's success rate in the Framework Program 7 was 27%. The European average is 21%, and third countries' average is 23%. We've seen a very significant increase in success and funding from FP6 to FP7. We're currently the first third country participant as a result of 7, and the fifth non-EU partner country in terms of success. Growth in specific areas includes ICT, space, mobility, etc. We, of course, link this with the 165 research chairs the NRF manages in South Africa, in the country, and the 13 centers of excellence, very similar to the Canadian examples that have been mentioned. Also, increase in participation in other EU programs, as we've seen from the previous slide. So this is a consolidated, networked, integrated, matrixed approach to broad-based funding for the country. Of course, specific focus is important and strategic for specific programs, but at the end, it's a matrixed engagement. Colleagues, in summary then, for the 4 countries, I don't know where the 5th one is that I've indicated there, that we've seen some conclusions. And Madam Chairperson, this is the last slide. It is very clear from the 4 countries that an engaged, structured approach is currently in play, and one can see that enhancement over a number of years where the ministry or the department or the Science Granting Council, the Academy of Science, etc., had played an increasingly important role in structuring each country's national system of innovation for broad-based participation. To varying degrees, are there success, but also support? So one sees mobility, seed funding, etc., and each actor plays a specific role in each country, but a common vision is the determinant of success of that engagement. Very importantly, the commitment by the national government of each and its funding agencies to enhance the support. So this goes with funding, with enabling NCP structures, with tasking a ministry or an agency to be the coordinator, etc., etc. There's increasing levels of success, as we've seen from the African countries' perspective, from the other countries presented here. It is a building process to success. Partner identification was mentioned yesterday afternoon as a standing challenge. It is a standing challenge. But again, this relates very closely to what the engagement strategy is of each country. There's publication lists, ISI lists, etc., that you can see who in your country is publishing with whom in the EU and raise that awareness to partner. At the end, it's the researcher that must seek, to my mind, where a suitable partner is, because it's specialized, it's discipline specific, and those are the people that must partner. It can be supported and it must be engaged, but sending an email to our Department of Science and Technology asking, I'm looking for this partner, only goes so far. There must be a proactive process, and the challenges is common to everyone to make that successful. I've mentioned briefly the increasing role of the national academies, which is important. It has large numbers of experts in certain areas. This is an important component of partner identification as well. The fact that linking with other larger EU programs or activities adds value is a very striking component of this evolvement of success. So I reiterate that it is usually not only the current program in existence that determines success, but it is a relatively medium to long-term build-up with a number of programs to add. And of course, the physical engagement, seed funding, mobility support, and so on, is common to all 4 of these countries presented, which is very important to my mind to bring the partnership closer. Thank you, Madam.
Thanks, Mr. Streber. First of all, I wanted to congratulate with South Africa for the agreement with the European Research Council. I would like to remember you that this afternoon, during the INCO expert training, you have the presentation of the European Research Council. Another point that I agree with you, two points. One, that Horizon 2020 is not the only program, and I agree that it's the most important, the most probably with a lot of money, but it's not only. So this is also the reason for this specific session. But also I saw your bilateral agreement, a lot of bilateral agreements. So this is another medal for South Africa. And the third point is that, of course, you underline one point, because we talk about the government, we talk about the funding agency, that it's really important for the environment, but if you don't have the researchers, and the high-level researcher with a high quality, is impossible to combine, to join any kind of successful proposal. And also the rate of your success project, it's more than the average in Europe, means that when your researchers wanted to join a consortia, give to the consortium an added value. So for me, it's the reciprocity. No, thank you. I like very much your presentation. I thank you again. And now I want to thank all our speakers. And as I promised, the floor is yours, means that if the audience wanted to ask more questions to our 3 speakers or to the other participant countries, please raise your hands, please. There is any question? Or you need the lunch? There is also this possibility. Nothing? Everything is clear? So, what do you want? Yes, please. Yes.
I just wanted to ask for Canada.
Please, you have to introduce yourself.
So I just wanted to add something for Canada. We are in the process of releasing a report on all the programs that are actually open to Europeans. And we had a good surprise that following Quebec, that was the first to have programs open to Europeans, also other provinces are opening up a bit. And we can say that this is a kind of a European success, because we have been told that after the Access for You project that went around the provinces investigating if there were possibilities for Europeans, then they start thinking that they maybe can open up their provincial programs to have this reciprocity that can assure maybe one day to have this reciprocal status between Canada and EU. And also CIHR, that is the NIH Canadian agency, is considering to apply a kind of a similar scheme as the US. So I think this is somehow a political success in a way from the European Commission international cooperation process, because they showed that they can open up because Horizon 2020 is open for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Martina. So, there is other question. So, Nonda, this is the last presentation, or?
We have another speaker.
Oh, another.
Okay, if I could just introduce. There is one last man standing between us and the lunch. So he has to be brave enough. So I would ask Mr. Fikes from Technopolis Group to give our last speech for this morning sessions.
Thanks. It's always a challenge to talk about international agreements, I think, especially before lunch. I won't take too much of your time. In the first place, let me tell you something about this study. We were asked by the Commission a short while ago. We as Technopolis Group, we did a study on behalf of the European Commission, DG Research, on STI agreements. The Commission wanted to find out what constitutes good STI agreements. When do they work? When don't they work? The Commission had also this commitment number 31 in the, that explicitly stated that the Commission should improve its STI agreements. We started this project together with German IP lawyers and the University of Vienna. Manfred Horvath, professor over there, specialized in international cooperation. Many of you might know him. We, Technopolis, we coordinated this project. It was quite a large project. I won't tell you too much about my company, about Technopolis. I think the basic issue is that we are with 90 people specialized in STI policy in several European countries, and I think this was the reason why the Commission asked us to perform this particular study. Actually, the study which I'm talking about is the one at most at the right. I think it's quite interesting because George already mentioned this change of mentality that has to take place within the international relations unit of DG Research. I think this unit asked for a total of 3 studies. The one at all 3 were conducted by us. The one at the left, we performed the study, I think, in 2012, and it gives an overview of all international collaborations of member states with third countries. So it's of member states, not of the EU. It's more or less an inventory study. The second study is on then, if we know what is being done by member states, what should be done by the European Commission? Where is the added value of the European Commission in this field of international collaboration, cooperation? And then the third study, the study that we're discussing right now, is really about the actual practice, how to put it into practice in legal terms, how to design STI agreements. The basic questions of the Commission is develop us a better understanding of STI agreements and explore the potential scope of a new type of STI agreements. Basically, the Commission wanted to know how can we work better together with member states in approaching third countries where it comes to STI agreements. This is what we did. We performed quite a lot of literature review on basically everything that's ever been written about STI agreements. We analyzed a total of 104 STI agreements. Many of them were EU agreements, of course. We had a total of 26 US agreements. We had, I think, if I remember by heart, 15 or so Chinese agreements, a lot of Russian agreements, Japanese, South Korean, Brazilian, and of course member states, especially French, UK, and German agreements. I think we also had at least 35 agreements signed by EMP countries in the study. What we did is we structured these agreements over a total of 40 variables, and then we started calculating with the agreement. So basically what the study was apart from the literature review and a lot of interviews that we did, basically it was statistics of legal agreements. These are the main findings that come from our study. In the first place, what you see if you analyze those 104 agreements, you see 2 branches of 2 families of agreements. Those are the EU agreements and the US agreements. Most other agreements, including some of the larger countries, are often copy-pasted from these 2 families of agreements. What we also noticed is that, and that goes for the EU agreements, that effectiveness in terms of cooperation is quite poor. We also found that the IPR annexes that are annexed to all US agreements and all EU agreements, they have no added value. They add no value from an IP point of view. Actually, they are, from a legal point of view, they might potentially endanger IP execution in the project. Evaluations of STI agreements, they're obliged by the Commission, but most evaluations are quite poor, actually, from a methodology point of view. And we also concluded that the Commission should definitely increase cooperation with Member States when it comes to approaching third countries in IP or in STI agreements. So this is basically what you probably recognize the structure. This is basically what a general STI agreement looks like. Now going into the agreements, this graph shows the thematic focus of STI agreements in general. What you see is the yellow bars at the end, they are the EU agreements. They usually focus on agriculture, on health, on environment, on humanities, on ICT, on NMP, and on transport. But that's typically for the EU agreements. The US agreements look a bit like it, but they spend much more attention to especially transport and to nano sciences, to NMP. Member States agreements, they are the blue line, the blue bars in the beginning. They are completely different, very heterogeneous, quite often don't identify thematic focus. This is an interesting graph. This shows to what extent budgets were actually allocated under FP7 to these specific thematic fields. What you see is that a lot of money is being spent in INCO terms, in international cooperation terms. A lot of money is spent on health, on food, on environment, on humanities. And you see that all the great intentions that the Commission had initially when signing the agreements with ICT, with NMP, and with transport, they're more or less neglected when it comes to the execution of research or the, let's say, the approval of projects. Another interesting component of STI agreements is the policy dialogue. The policy dialogue is usually it consists of several components, and the identification of executive agents in the STI agreement, the identification of steering groups in the STI agreement. Quite often we also see the identification of a number of the frequency of meetings for those steering groups. What we see is that the Commission, you see these 40%. Twice. Those are the Commission's the Commission's agreements. The Commission really emphasizes the importance of the policy dialogues, whereas the US, for instance, is the 42% at the right column. They often have light or medium heavy policy dialogues in their STI agreements. And that's quite fascinating because, as Mr. El-Shayed yesterday already mentioned, the Commission might identify a high frequency of meetings, so might set up a very heavy policy dialogue, but in actual practice it doesn't really work that way. And that's one of the main reasons why the impacts, as we will see later, of the STI agreements of the EU are not as substantial as they could be. A neglect of policy dialogues, often by the EU and sometimes by the third countries. This is IPR. What you see over here is that it's quite a complicated graph, but basically what it says is that the EU spends some attention on IPR in their IPR annexes. They're relatively detailed, whereas the US really go into detail and they try to arrange everything possibly within the IPR annexes. Whereas individual member states, they're quite relaxed with it. Often they don't include an IPR annex, or most often they say, well, IPR has to be arranged at the project level, at the level of the individual project or the individual program. It's basically the member states take the good approach from a legal point of view, while WTO and WIPO agreements, global agreements, they arrange everything there has to be arranged when it comes to IPR. These are some findings on the impacts of EU STI agreements. As I said before, we included a lot of EU STI agreements. We talked to a lot of evaluators of these agreements. And basically what they said is, we don't find the impacts that we wanted to find initially. What we see, and when it comes to EU agreements, is that bilateral participation caused by these agreements, it might increase a bit because of the agreements, but it's a slight increase. It's not as much increase as, for instance, member states' agreements cause with third countries. Reciprocity, we discussed it earlier, it's even when you talk to the Commission and you ask the Commission for, okay, how do you interpret reciprocity, they don't have any idea. They say, well, we just want reciprocity, no matter what it exactly is. But in any definition of reciprocity that we've discussed with the Commission, reciprocity, because of these agreements, is quite often it's very low most of the time. Also goes for mobility of researchers and bilateral policy dialogues. And we see those bilateral policy dialogues really as a crucial element for the success or the failure of any SCI agreement signed by the US. The policy dialogues often don't work out the way they should work out. Yes? This slide only refers to EC agreements. And that because the EC is the only one that really structurally evaluates its agreements. Germany does so as well, but this basically relates to EU agreements. And awareness amongst policymakers and researchers is often too small. Of course, over here we're with a specific in-crowd, but if you look broader, and if you also look at the people from the European Commission themselves, they don't really know what's in the agreements. They don't know how it works out, how it should work out, what the potential of the agreement is. And it's quite a pity, of course. This is what we suggested to the Commission. We don't know to what extent they really will implement our suggestions, because they were quite radical from the Commission point of view. But what we said basically is you got to do it completely differently when it comes to agreements, to signing these agreements. What you should do is come up with a system that we refer to as a basic principles umbrella. That's an umbrella agreement that either the Commission or an EU member state signs with the third countries, with a specific third country. And under this umbrella, it's possible for either the Commission or other member states to join in. And this umbrella, basically, it's not very detailed. What it says, who coordinates on behalf of Europe? Is it the Commission, DG Research, a certain agency? Or is it an individual member states that has long-standing relationships with the third country and is really able to manage a good policy dialogue and knows the demands and knows the needs of this third country? If such an umbrella agreement is set up, it's possible for individual member states to join in or not join in. It might be member states that are completely not interested in joining up in international cooperation with the specific third countries, and other specific third countries are very interesting, of course, for member states. This, we believe, at scale, which isn't present at much of the member states' agreements right now. It adds resources, which isn't present in many of the EU STI agreements. And it also adds some sort of dedication, as we refer it to. It adds dedication in terms of, okay, we got to make this thing working. We got to implement this policy dialogue, get it active, get it continuing, and get something out of the agreement, of course. And it offers a very flexible approach from the EU side per third country. Actually, I think that this is, it was one of the Innovation Union's commitments, to be precise, commitment number 31 of the European Commission was find out how we can improve STI agreements. That's why they hired us, and basically this is our answer. We have got no idea to what extent the Commission will implement such a rather revolutionary idea. We know that it's possible from the Lisbon Treaty. We know that it's by far the best approach from a legal point of view. We very seriously expected it's the best approach from a policy and from a research cooperation point of view. But now it's up to the Commission. The Commission has been relatively positive about this. George this morning mentioned that the Commission has got to find a new mentality. We've been working closely with this particular international relationships unit from the Commission for the past 2 years, and we know that they're seriously understaffed. They've been going through heavy reorganizations, and in the meantime, with only a small number of people, they had to design Horizon 2020, implement Horizon 2020. And I think now it's time for them to develop this new mentality, and we have to see what comes out of it. Thank you. Are there any questions or?
And I'm wondering if you have any insight on the impact of the bilateral agreements of the member states. Is it comparable to that?
No.
Did you take a look, or you have any insight on the impact of these agreements from the member states?
Well, member states don't actively evaluate the impacts of their agreements. What we know from the member states that do evaluate them in a what we find methodologically rigorous manner. For instance, Germany does so. Ireland has been publishing something about impacts, but what we know from these two member states is that the impacts are significantly higher, and that's because money is in the cooperation, even though it's not much. But other questions? Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you so much. We're going to break for lunch. We're running a bit late, so I would say please come back around 2:15 if possible. We'll continue with the training session, and the parallel session will be in the room downstairs. Thank you.